1997 ASA season is turning into a raging inferno as they chase the coveted cup. Last week's finish was a classic as Flight 52 was non-stop to victory lane and a shot at the title.
Well, as far as the points go, I'd rather be lucky than good, and right now we've been pretty lucky.
Hansen has picked up 154 points and 2 wins in the last 3 races. State of Mon has 3 wins and his best shot ever at the Crown.
Well, we made up some ground over the last couple of weeks, and Kevin's going to have some bad luck, but Jennerstown's a good racetrack for us, and maybe we can do it here.
Kevin Sawinski has the points lead in 3 wins, but 2 DNFs in the last 2 races have him looking over his shoulder.
We got 3 races to go. We're still got a pretty comfortable lead. I think, this race here at Jennerstown will be the telling point for us.
Strap in, the Jennerstown 400 next. Well, the last rays of summer have definitely left this part of Pennsylvania. It is cool and chilly, and we're ready to go racing with the Pennsylvania 400. The American Speed Association back in Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. Like I said, 60 degrees, but that 5 to 10 mile an hour wind makes it feel a little bit cooler than that here on top of our broadcast booth. Overcast skies, but not really too much of a chance of rain here today. Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Shaheen, strapped in alongside, once again, my co-driving partner here at the AC-Delco Challenge Series, Jim Trado. And we've got 3 races left to go here in the 97 season. The last few have been absolutely spectacular. Everybody driving very aggressively, Jim, as they scramble to get the last few points as we race towards the championship.
Well, there's a lot of money on the line, over $3 million they're racing for, and Scott Hansen's charge is incredible. He's had 4 top 3 finishes. He's done extremely well. He's closed within 23 points of Gary St. Amant in their search for the championship.
Steve Carlson in 5th there will be crowned our Pat Schauer Rookie of the Year. Take a look at the back half of the top 10. Mike Eddy, sitting there in 8th place, was nowhere near that last year at this time.
He was barely in the top 15 a year ago, and it's been 29 races since he scored a victory.
Well, let's go downstairs now to the front of our grid, where Scott Hansen is standing by with the 3rd member of our broadcasting crew, Dave Burns.
Thanks, Ralph. I am with the man of the hour, fastest qualifier, Scott Hansen. And Scott, you've been closing on Gary St. Amant and Kevin Sawinski the last few races. How tough is it going to be for you to get 2nd or 1st place in the points with 3 races to go?
Well, we just need to stay consistent the way we have been and keep running good, get as many points as we can in this qualifying and leading laps, and just get out here with a good finish. So it's going to take.
He's trying to stay very low-key about all this. Well, last week was anything but low-key. He finished 1st after a wild finish with the car on the outside of the front row, Mike Miller in the 18. They'll start side by side today, and they're going to pick up right where they left off last week. And if you missed last week's finish, take a look at this.
Here it is, Scott Hansen in the middle in the white 52. That's Mike Miller on the outside, the red and white car, and Carlson's going to come screaming up the inside. Hansen gets the win, Carlson is 2nd. They make contact. Now watch this. Airborne goes Hansen, destroying the bottom side of the race car, but he ends up taking the win in a very controversial finish.
Me and Mike were running really close, and I was more concerned about giving him room and not pinching him in the wall, and I guess I pinched Steve Carlson down a little bit, which was a real surprise to me. I never knew he was really there.
Scott gave me about 1.5 inches on each side, and that was enough to stay on the outside. I mean, it was some really dramatic racing there at the end.
Scott and Mike were kind of battling out, banging fenders there, so I just saw some opening out of there in the bottom of the racetrack coming out of 4 and got underneath them guys. Almost won the race.
Where did you think you had finished?
I thought I might have finished 2nd. I wasn't sure, though.
A lot of conversations during the week about it?
Oh, yeah, everybody's been talking about that.
That's exactly right. Everybody's been talking about it. It was a tremendous finish. But, Jim, this racetrack right here at Jennerstown has had some thrilling finishes. Bob Seneker and Joe Knott sliding across the inside retaining wall as Seneker claimed another victory. This track could be pivotal in the championship today.
It's a flat oval. It's a half mile. It's kind of the traditional oval for the AC-Delco Challenge Series, but really it comes down to tire wear and pit strategy. Overcast skies, some teams worried about the weather. But when it comes down to it, it's the teams that have better pit stops and better track position that will wind up in the top 10 today.
Well, let's stop talking about it. Let's go racing. Back downstairs to Dave Burns to fire up the engines.
And I'm standing by with Ron McLaughlin, who is an account manager for AC-Delco. And, Ron, we're going to race 400 laps here at Jennerstown today. Do that thing that you do.
Okay. Gentlemen, start your engines.
The racetrack. back. You get a little adrenaline pumping through our system. The Jennerstown 400 coming up next, live on TNN. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by your GM Select Good Wrench Service Plus dealers. The plus means better. We're at Jennerstown Speedway in Jennerstown, Pennsylvania, about an hour south of Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania 400 is why we are here. There are just 3 races left in the 97 season, including this one. Let's show you the grid for today's race. Starting on the pole, 2 wins in the last 3 races. Boy, is he on a tear. Scott Hansen, 99.9 miles an hour. He'll start on the pole. Mike Miller needs a top 5 finish if he wants to make the next race financially at Salem next week.
With 2 wins to his credit, starting inside row 2 is Mike Garvey in the Tony's Pizza Pontiac. Outside of him, Mike Eddy, winless since July 20th, 1996 here at Jennerstown. That's a 29 race span.
Row 3, Brad Loney, a winner at I-70 earlier this year, and one of the greatest drivers ever to come out of Canada, Junior Hanley, looking for his first win of 97.
Ted Smokestead trying to back up a top 5 finish a week ago. We'll start inside of row number 4. Outside, second man in the points, Gary Santamont with 3 wins this year in the Wynn Chevrolet.
And in row 5, Bob Seneker, 83 career wins, and he's gotten a few here at this racetrack. The man he beat one year, Joe Knott, will start right alongside in the 48 Ford.
Dave Sensiba has a best finish of a 2nd place here at Jennerstown, one of his 4 runner-up finishes in ASA career. Outside of him, Steve Holtzhausen, who runs extremely well on flat ovals like here at Jennerstown.
Row 7 has Kevin Sawinski, the man that leads the point standings, and Steve Carlson, the man who will wrap up Pat Schauer Rookie of the Year award.
Brandon Sperling crashed while leading. He'll start outside of Jack Landis in the 07. Landis in the Adirondack Linedecker Maisto Ford. Outside of Brandon Sperling's truck here, transfer Chevrolet. Sperling, however, had to go to backup car and backup motor for this race.
Row number 9, Rick Beebe and Buddy Schrock in the 35 Chevrolet back on the tour after a few races off.
Making his 2nd start on pavement in the Bud Gevin Chevrolet number 4, Jimmy Johnson, the off-road racer out of El Cajon, California. To his outside, Bobby Gill, the Pontiac owned by Leo Motorsports.
Row number 11, Harold Fair out of Detroit, Michigan, and Mike Kofer, former Southwest Tour Rookie of the Year.
His only victory in ASA came here at Jennerstown. Tom Jones, the Zero Hero, will start inside row 12. Starting 24th to be Billy Turner of El Reno, Oklahoma in a Pontiac.
Row 13, first time we've seen Mike Miller in quite a few weeks, and for the first time this year, Dr. Yale Conley back behind the wheel of number 3.
Row 14, Gary Terry making his first ever ASA start for the Kalamazoo Speedway regular, and Todd Forbes, who ran here at Jennerstown in June, took some time off, came back here in the Axel Handler Ford, will start outside row 14.
And row 15, Sean Dupuis in the Chevrolet car number 67, and Tim Sauter gets another turn behind the wheel of Alec Pinsonneau's Pontiac car number 93.
And making up the field, Doug Mayer of Franklin, Wisconsin, and the No-Touch Car Care Chevrolet, and Harold Fair Jr., that's Harold Fair Jr., and Greg Freed's number 80, will start at the tail end of the field in the MSM Power Chevrolet.
So that's your field for the Jennerstown 400. There's a look at Brandon Sperling and Todd Forbes and the rest. Warming up the tires. It is a half-mile oval here, and Jim, it is pretty flat.
It's only 6 degrees in the straightaways, 9 degrees in the banking, which is equal to a Loudon or a Milwaukee Mile, but the half-mile racetrack and how wide this place is, 70 feet wide, offers 2 and 3 groups of racing.
And the key is it's not just 70 feet wide down the straightaways, but 70 feet wide through the turns as well. 32 cars will take the green flag here today. 14 of them will be Pontiacs, 5 Fords, and 13 Chevrolets. And I think one thing that we need to add to this is the fact that we're here earlier than normal. Usually the series would come here to wrap up the championship, but it would be late in October. This year we're here in September. Weather conditions are a little bit different. Some of the teams have been guessing a little bit as what they can expect here.
And it's been a 400-lap grind here. ASA has run 250-lap events, 300-lap events here, but traditionally the fall race here at Jennerstown, the 11 previous runs here at Jennerstown, over half of them have been 400 lappers, 200 miles on this oval. Really takes a toll on equipment, and this late in the season, the teams really need to worry about the last 3 races and keep their equipment fresh.
Some of those that did not make the show here this weekend, Robbie Pyle, B.J. McLeod not making the show again in the 78 car.
New York short tracker Joe Stefanski, who was narrowly, I think, within 1/1000th of a second of making the show in qualifying, did not transfer through the last chance race.
Scott Hansen and Kenny Schrader's white number 52. And Mike Miller, the red and white number 18, getting ready to lead the field to the green flag. Pontiac Firebird pace car has the lights off, and it dives down pit road. They pick up the pace as they come off at turn 4. The Jennerstown 400 about to get underway. Glad to have you with us. Pretty much 2 by 2 still as we go into turn 3. Mike Eddy will move up into third.
Tom Jones on the inside is a bit off the pace in the AP Performance Pontiac. He's now back to about 4 cars from the rear.
Here comes Brad Loney inside of Junior Hanley. Loney in that blue 33. Up the front straightaway again. Hanley and Loney side by side, fighting it out for 5th position.
Junior Hanley led here in the June race. That was the first time he had led an ASA race since 1990. On a couple of more occasions, but Hanley certainly does well here. He's one of the first 2 or 3 guys in practice times, and he backed it up with a 6th place qualifying effort. Now trying to get down to the inside line, because that right now is the faster line. They did not have a lot of practice with 2 wide racing. A lot of teams went out and did single runs.
Look at the contact there. Loney right up into the door panel. Contact again as they come off a 4. Not afraid to mix it up with anybody. His nickname was Mad Dog. We've seen him live up to it a couple of times this year, but he hasn't had the kind of season that Junior expected, or we expected to see from him. Loney gets by him, and now Gary St. Amant, the man who is second in the ASA Championship point standings, trying to slide by as well in the wins number 7.
Junior Hanley suffering through a year with 7 DNFs. Trying to improve on that today. Is at a career best, or excuse me, a season high 4th place finish this year. I don't think that's up to his standards. And Gary St. Amant from Brad Loney's bump and run got to the inside position on Hanley's Team Kendall Chevrolet.
Ted Smokestad trying to get up around the outside where Junior is, thinking maybe that's going to work better for him. He's at red, white, and blue 32. Gary completes that pass. The number 1 going by, the black car. That is Kevin Sawinski. That is the man who leads the point standings. He has got about 8 cars between him and Gary St. Amant. And right now, Jim, Gary needs every car between him and Kevin he can get. He's gained points on the point leader Kevin Sawinski the last 2 races. Sawinski with a 14th and 15th place finish. The last 2 events broke his string of consecutive top 10 streak really in a harsh way, because he had a 224-point edge. Coming into this race, it's down to a 149-point edge for the team Tecumseh Motorsports Pontiac. That's Kevin right there, that black and yellow with the white number 1 on the side. He's got Dave Sensiba in the red and white number 6 in front of him, and Steve Carlson, the Baker Motorsports number 87, chasing after him. Sawinski's in 13th. Baker's entry with Steve Carlson behind the wheel is 14th. A lot of people here from Cleanburn, Clean Oil Furnaces, backing the efforts of the 87 car today. Meanwhile, up towards the front, Gary St. Amant and Brad Loney running together. St. Amant made an outside pass on Brad Loney, so the outside has come in nicely for Gary St. Amant. He now moves into the 5th position. He's got Mike Garvey just in front of him. Look at Gary drifting pretty wide through turns 3 and 4. He might have saw something there, because he ran inside of Junior Hanley for a number of laps, and they stayed even. Hanley was forced to the outside. No, Gary prefers the outside line and is gaining ground on Brad Loney, who's now falling back to Hanley once again. The running order right now is Hansen out front. He's got about 2 car lengths over Mike Miller and Mike Eddy. Mike Garvey back to Gary St. Amant, and there is that battle between the 2 Mikes, Eddy and Miller. Mike Miller, the red and white 18, the Goodwrench Service Plus Pontiac of Mike Eddy, the 7-time champion, running in 3rd. Mike Miller won the fall race last season in convincing fashion and finished 2nd here on May 17th of this year, so he certainly knows how to get around this Jennerstown Speedway. And Mike Eddy, he has the most wins of any driver. 4 victories here at Jennerstown Speedway, leading the list of ASA drivers here today. Second on the all-time ASA win list is Mike Eddy, but winless in 29 or 30 races. 29 races. Last one came here, and there was a little puppy dog on top of his car in Victor Lane, a dog named Oreo. That dog is here today. I rubbed its ear and said, you know what, if I can bring you any kind of luck, I will, because Mike's certainly been struggling through a season. Dog's a lot bigger than that. A lot bigger.
it was one of those dogs that now takes the person for a walk on the leash rather than the person taking the dog for a walk.
Here's a racing a little bit deeper in the field, but this is just as good. That's Steve Holzhausen, the black number 5, working on the outside is Smokestad. Just in front of them in the blue 84 is Bob Seneker and Brad Loney in the blue 33. Chasing them is Joe Knott in the 48, Sawinski in the black number 1, Sensiba in there. We've got Carlson in that fight as well, and Jack Landis is in there as well in the 07.
Loney's running in 7th, but look how loose he got there. The blue car, the lead blue car, the Bud Saber Pontiac of Brad Loney has to go to the outside because that's the only way he can keep the handle on the race car. Bob Seneker goes to the inside and makes the pass.
And he got tapped from Seneker as well.
Holzhausen will be a factor in the Howes Lubricator Ford. He had an extremely good practice session.
Here he comes on the inside in that number 5.
Qualified 12th, but he knew he could have done better if the conditions were a bit different. They made a lot of changes on this number 5 car. Vanity Motorsports team.
Then the 48 car of Joe Knott has got a longtime veteran crew chief Jim Daly working with him here today. Jim Daly has brought a lot of victories to a lot of different drivers, and there's one other person working on this car who is not here, but I guarantee you he's watching at home back in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. The 96 ASA champion Tony Raines was on the phone with these two earlier this morning, giving them some ideas on what to do to win here at Jennerstown, and they're going to be checking in with Tony throughout the course of the race, especially around lap 150, they were saying, to see how things are going and what ideas Tony might have as far as what the track and the car might do here today.
Crew Chief Jim Daly did bring his own car here, the number 2 Gillen Car Care Products car that Tony Raines won this race with here in May.
Look at the fight for second. Mike Eddy inside of Mike Miller. Down in turn number 1. He'll make the pass. Well, here we go again, Jim. Mike Eddy quick in the early stages of the race, moving towards the front. The big question has been every race weekend, will he be there at the end?
Every time he cuts a record like this, it breaks. It's a broken record right now for Mike Eddy. He's continually dominated events. He's still 3rd in lead laps of the entire field in any given ASA race for the season. Coming to this event, Mike Eddy has led 8 races for 1,241 laps here. So he knows how to run up front and run it convincingly strong, and looks like he's wanting to do that today again.
Look at this fight for 10th position. Smokestad, Loney, Carlson, Smokestad around in front of the pack.
Up into Sensiba, but everybody on the binders.
Well, you can see everybody kind of saw it developing, and they all kind of eased off the throttle. That could have wiped out a huge contingent of challengers.
A number of teams have told me that the track may be slickening up after a couple of green flag laps. It's only lap 22, but they were worried that there's a lot of rosin put down here in May. The teams had extreme traction through the corners. They could keep it almost full throttle midway through the corner out. It appeared that maybe the rear end just walked away a little bit on Ted as he got on the gas to maintain or pass forward position on Brad Loney.
Well, he'll stay on the lead lap in the Build 'em Old 32. Let's take a look at some replays of this. See what exactly happened to Smokestad. The blue and white and red, number 32 on the bottom of your screen going into turn 3.
As they go into the corner, Smokestad drifts up just a bit. They might have made contact. We see Loney correct. But as he spins, everybody gets on the binders. And you see the 87 of Carlson sneaking through. But don't know if it was a contact or if Smokestad just had the weight transfer on him. When he got back on the gas, it wasn't on the rears, and around he went.
I'll tell you what, a lot of drivers did some fantastic driving to avoid serious problems in there. Let's look at this again, Jim, from the camera on the inside of turn 3. He looks a little loose there, and looks like he kind of slides into Loney.
Yeah, you can see the left front wheel starting to turn to the right as he went into the corner. Couldn't keep it down. Actually did a great job of staying off Loney as far as the car drifted into the corner like that.
In Kevin Swinsky's pit is Dave Burns.
All right, Ralph, that's Ted Smokestad. They get in and out in a hurry. They changed right side rubber. There doesn't appear to be any real damage on the right side of the car. So with new rubber on the right side, Smokestad is back out.
All right, Dave, thank you. And so does Harold Fair Jr. Chilly day here at Jennerstown, but some hot action on the racetrack. Stay with us. We got a long way to go here at the Jennerstown 400. We're back, and you're taking a look at Bart Benson, sister of Johnny Benson, and the rest of the scorers sitting up here, keeping an eye on things. Bart comes to score for Scott Hansen on a weekly basis with the ASA series. And Harold Fair is having some problems in the CarQuest AC-Delco number 81, Jim. He had to get pushed off the grid.
Yeah, he's a lap down. Unfortunately, his car stalled under this most recent caution at the very end of pit lane. And under that effort to get a push truck over there, he lost a lap. Might be an ignition problem because he had to get push started off at the outset. And now with that car stalling down there in the end of pit lane, it did cost him a lap, and he is right now the only car lap down. Also in the pits twice under that caution was Billy Turner in the 58 car. So we'll keep an eye on that as all the other drivers have elected to stay out. Scott Hansen has led the initial 28 laps here and trying to hold off Mike Eddy. And Eddy wasn't really close to Scott, but with this caution, we'll see if Eddy has anything for him.
With a story on Harold Fair, here's Dave Burton.
Well, they're still trying to figure out what it is. Now Harold is going to bring the AC-Delco Pontiac onto pit road. They thought it might be the battery. They thought it might be ignition, so it's definitely electrical. They'll go into the hood, but if they have to go to the battery, that's located usually back near the rear tire, and that'd be an extended stop for Fair.
This is a team that's been very fast on the racetrack, but pretty slow in the pits as of late. In fact, the last couple of weekends, Harold has lost 5 or 7 positions every time they made a pit stop. We're back to green. Scott Hansen out in front of Mike Eddy. Remember, Mike Miller, who runs in third, needs a top 5 finish here today, Jim, just so that financially he can afford to go to the next race.
Hunt Oil Company has signed on for a one-race sponsorship of Mike Miller's number 18, and a great story. The last time they raced here, Miller Motorsports team, his wife Judy was in the grandstand. Turns out Dwight Weigel's wife and son were sitting with Judy. Dwight owns Hunt Oil Company. Judy kind of kept track of the 6-year-old boy, and they enjoyed the race, but after the race, they got talking. Then when they found out Mike was in money trouble, they called ASA and said, I want to sponsor Mike Miller for this race at Jennerstown.
And a challenge for the lead from Mike Eddy on the inside of Scott Hansen. He's got him by a nose. Miller sliding up right behind him. Up the front straightaway, give the lead to Mike Eddy. But for how long? Miller and Hansen now go side by side. Gary St. Amant closing in. He watches from fourth.
We thought the outside line would be quicker, but see Hansen being left out there now, and Miller advancing to second.
Junior Hanley getting into this mix too, Jim. He's up to 5th in the 72 car. And Harold Fair had gone back out on the track. He now pits behind pit wall. He'll pull it into the back area. Looks like his day is coming to an end. Kendall Oil, Port City number 72, closing in on St. Amant. And the fight for 6 gets pretty good too. Bob Seneca in the 84 and Mike Garvey in the 8 car.
Garvey started 3rd. Seneca started 9th, so you can see the transfix of position there. Seneca on the way to the front. Garvey a bit loose at this point in the Giant Eagle Tony's Pizza Pontiac. He's drifted back now to race with Steve Holtzhausen in the 5 car.
Mike Garvey has signed up once again with Jerry Gunderman. He will be back behind the wheel of the number 8 for the 1998 season. Whoa, and Holtzhausen and Garvey get together, coming off a 2. We talked about how everybody was driving a little aggressively the last couple of weeks, trying to get those points. Looks like today here at Jennerstown is going to be the same thing. Well, if you needed a good short track stock car fix, this was a place to come to today. AC-Delco Challenge Series going at it once again. We're going to do 400 laps here today. Side-by-side racing action like this fight right here is what you can expect all afternoon long. Joe Knott in the 48 car coming up on the inside to get in this.
Brings to mind a comment Steve Holtzhausen made before the season started. He said, people get so excited about Bristol. In ASA, we race Bristol every weekend.
Don't you love it?
Last week, you had to love it. 3 wide finish at the end point, 0.28 seconds margin of victory. 3 cars at the stripe. Nobody knew who won until they checked the tape.
Well, there's no pigskins here, but I guarantee you we're going to have a lot of bumping and banging and crashing into each other before the day is done. Pennsylvania 400 is the last race scheduled on the Jennerstown Speedway calendar for the 97 season. It's a pretty good one so far. Steve Carlson, the 87 car. They're fighting for 9th with Mike Garvey on the outside in the white and blue number 8.
Carlson started 14th. He's now up in the 7th position, so a great run for him. Of course, this team did have Tony Raines behind the wheel a year ago, and Raines won his share of races towards the end of the year and made a charge. A lot of people were comparing his charge last year to Scott Hansen's charge this year.
You know, those big, wide wide turn, 70 feet wide here in the corners. Mike Garvey seems to think that this team is probably as good as it's been all year now. They really struggled through August and half of September, but he thinks they're coming back around. Now, here's a couple of old war horses having at it. For 5th position, Junior Henley in that white 72. Bob Seneker, the winningest driver in ASA competition with 83 victories, one away from matching the car number, runs right behind him.
Bob Seneker, the Newick Auto Sales Lane Automotive Ford, has won here 3 times. So he certainly knows how to get the job done here at Jennerstown. A very smooth driver, very good racetrack for Bob Seneker. Smooth in, smooth out, only 9 degrees of banking. And that wide racetrack, you've got to keep your line and stay low on that yellow line. And Seneker's been able to do that time and time again here.
He's got a good inside line there as he comes up inside of Hanley. One win for Bob Seneker in 1997. Hard to believe it's only one.
Talk to Mike Eddy. He'll take anything right now.
Absolutely.
Scott Hansen had a string of 29-odd races before he won, and now he's won 2 of the last 3 races here in ASA.
Could today be the day that the Goodwrench Service Plus Pontiac pulls into victory lane? Mike was one of the few drivers, Jim, that if you walked up and down pit road this morning and asked him, what do you think the track is going to do? Most of the drivers kind of thought it was going to get tight because of the cold weather, the clouds over the racetrack, which is exactly what you would figure. Mike was one of the few who said, I think it might slick up.
Scott Hansen made 2 front spring changes because of the very same thought. He thought this racetrack does not have nearly the grip in the corners. Changed both front springs this morning on the grid.
Mike Miller inside and with more on the story of the racetrack. Dave?
Well, what you guys are talking about is perplexing a lot of the drivers, especially those who don't have enough horsepower, maybe not have the best setup here this weekend. They're hoping that the track will loosen up because they feel that if the track gets harder to drive, that'll bring them back into play a little bit more. So guys like Brandon Sperling, who's down in horsepower this weekend, want the track to loosen up, but the clouds, as you say, are going to keep it tight.
Wow, what great racing for the lead. Mike Miller and Mike Eddy putting on a show. And Jim, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I'm starting to see a little puff of smoke again out of the back of the 18. Last time around, going into turns 1 and 2, there was a little bit of smoke, and I'm not sure why. We saw that develop at Cedar Rapids last week, and it basically cost him the race because his engine wasn't as strong. See, there it is again. Now watch this again going down into turn 3. Watch Miller on the inside get the tail end dancing. Now, that wasn't the smoke I was talking about.
Smoke. Yeah, that was brake smoke saying, okay, Mike's got the corner. I'm just going to stay here in second. But there is a little puff. White means water, blue means oil. The last race, he cooked all the water out of the engine. At the end of the race, the engine was melted down. He's lucky he finished the event. Same situation here. This is the motor that they took out of the car at Cedar Rapids. They missed all the practice changing an engine. They thought they had an ignition problem. What they've done to this engine is they've grounded both heads with ground wires right to the chassis to try to eliminate any sort of ignition miss, because when they put it on the dyno, it tested fine. So they thought it might have been an ignition problem. They made some adjustments, and now we see a little bit of a puff there. He said it's a good motor, but unfortunately problems are developing here on the 18 of Mike Miller.
Lap traffic is what Mike Eddy, Mike Miller, and Scott Hansen now have to deal with. Is that puff of smoke going to have to be something to worry about? Stay with us to find out as we work our way through the Pennsylvania 400. Gary St. Amand is second in the point standings, runs in third. Make that fourth. It's Hansen who is third. He is third in the point standings as well. The man who leads the point standings, Kevin Swinski, is all the way back in 10th. But this is the hot spot on the racetrack. This is a fight for the lead. Mike Eddy and Mike Miller. That smoke still puffing out of the back of the 18. No word yet as to what the problem is with car number 18.
We're 64 laps into this, and Mike Eddy leading Mike Miller. It's been this way the last 5-10 laps, and I think teams are starting to worry about tire wear, starting to see how the track is greasing up. Ted Smokestead, who came in on the only caution we've had this far, has moved from 31st to 15th in 35 laps, so I think teams are taking notice of that as well. As he's marking his way through the field with 2 right side tires, it makes a big difference under long periods of green like we're under right now.
Doug Mayer just in front of them in the no-touch Menards number 11. He is racing deep in the pack with Tim Sauter and Rick Miller. And our leader is going to have to work through those cars right now.
Next car on the hit list is the Trim Class Razor number 93 of Tim Sauter, driving for the rest of the year for Alec Pinson. Now, Alec's under the weather more than anything, and Tim will finish the year. Alec may field the second car at Salem or Kenley, but right now he's very happy with how Tim Sauter's been helping his team. Vice versa, they thought maybe that the team would help Tim, but Tim's really been a big help to those guys.
You know, one thing we should say about Alec Pinsono as his car goes down a lap now is ASA gives out a Sportsman of the Year award at the annual banquet, and I think Alec should be nominated this year. He has really helped out a lot of drivers. Tom Jones, Tim Sauter, Harold Fair, Ted Smokestad have all seen a big helping hand from Alec this year, as well as running his own program. Not just here's a tire, but here's an engine, or here's a whole sponsorship for the rest of the season if you're Ted Smokestad. A great sportsman and a great addition to the ASA series is Alec Pinsono. Mike Eddy, he is the leader right now. He is still being chased by Mike Miller.
They just lapped the 31 car of Rick Miller, making his second start here. He finished 10th here at Jennerstown, his home track out of Dunbar, Pennsylvania. And the Snow King mobile home covers 31, and unfortunately he's gone down a lap here at lap 70.
Taking a look back towards sixth position, that's third with Hansen, fourth is St. Amant in the 7 car. Fifth is Junior Hanley right now of the Kendall Oil Port City 72 right there going by, and then Bob Seneker is 6th in the Bluebird, the 84 car.
In 7th is Steve Holtzhausen here in the House Lubricator number 5, right behind Seneker. These guys have waged war on tracks. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, these guys dominated the first 5 times ASA has been there. Looking at the records, Steve Holtzhausen has only had a 5th place finish here, but certainly runs extremely strong. He's got one top 5 finish, but has other good runs to his credit here. He had a problem in the May race, knocked him back to 28th in the overall rundown.
Pair of Fords running nose to tail. Oh, look at this. Holtzhausen trying to get to the bottom side of Seneker.
Seneker might be waiting out how Junior Hanley negotiates traffic. As he looks to the outside, he may even want Holtzhausen to get through there just for the time being. We know Bob Seneker does not push it each and every lap of the first half of the race, but watch out the second half, and here comes Holtzhausen trying to get ahead of him.
Bob is somebody who definitely races the racetrack, not the rest of the cars, until the closing stages of the event.
Well, 83 wins. I'm not going to touch that theory because he certainly has been successful in ASA competition.
You know, it's funny, Bob, I brought that up with Bob earlier today, that very same thing. We were talking about what the track was going to do today, and he said, I'm not really sure. I said, Bob, you won 83 races. My gosh, you know, you should know better than anybody. And he says, yeah, but think of how many I lost.
I thought he was an optimist. More of a pessimist, I guess.
Up front, the action pretty good, too. Miller still handing the back of Mike Eddy. And Mike Eddy still likes that middle lane.
Mike Miller loves the bottom. He does it here again. Pulls almost even this time by. And Eddy now sees that second groove is developing, and he's been able to hold the lead. Look at the pack of traffic just ahead of him here. It's going to be a fight to see who can get through there first.
Yale Conley, Brandon Sperling, Todd Forbes, and Buddy Schrock, the next 4 cars, and they're all racing 2 wide. Where are these guys going to go?
They're racing lead lap position. Mike Demmett in the flag stand will have his work cut out for him, trying to make them move over. Very difficult to stay on lead lap here. We've had an average of 9 cars finish on lead lap in the given AC-Delco Challenge Series race, but keep in mind, most of the tracks are a half mile and a little smaller, a little bigger. Milwaukee Mile is the biggest track this series runs on, so very tight competition, and the fast guys get faster as we see a couple of cars, including Brandon Sperling, who led 59 laps one race ago, going on down here at Jennerstown.
3 wide as the good doctor Yale Conley slips in between Todd Forbes and Brandon Sperling. Mike Eddy looking for a hole to slide the 88 through. Up the front stretch. Billy Turner in there, and you can see Miller hard on the brakes as the smoke pours off of him. To the outside they'll go, and around Brandon Sperling. Poor Brandon Sperling was leading the race last week and got into an incident with Johnny Spaulding, turned into a raging inferno. Both drivers fortunately okay, but it destroyed the best car Brandon Sperling has and his best engine, and he's struggling here today with a car that's not up to par. With more on the 51 car, Brandon Sperling here at State Burn.
And Ralph, they don't have as much horsepower as they'd like this weekend. Phil Harper has refreshened a Buick V6 for him, but it hasn't got the horsepower that their normal K-Tech does. So that was one of the reasons why Brandon was hoping that the track would slicken up and it would bring the race back to him. But for right now, they're down a few HPs.
The fight for third between Gary St. Amant in the 7 car, Scott Hansen in the 52, Todd Forbes in the 98 car is a lap down.
Gary's had 3 wins this year, his most successful season ever, 9 top 5s. I believe that's the most top 5s he's ever had in the AC-Delco Challenge Series. It's his 12th year of competition, and Bud Gevens wins West Michigan Chevrolet Dealers Chevrolet. Mike Sinitko, the crew chief, and Gary combined efforts with Bud Gevens' operation. They moved to the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. St. Amant has never moved out of the Columbus, Ohio area and has rarely visited the shop this season, but certainly talks to the team continuously via the telephone and when they get to the racetrack. Gary, I said in the autograph session before the race, I said, Gary, you won practice. You had more laps out there than anybody else. What have you been doing? He said, you know what, I'm so concerned that Mike Eddy is fast and faster than anybody here. We made a ton of changes yesterday. We hope it'll pay off today.
Dave, the one thing you got to be careful of when you do that is not to over-engineer the car.
That's right, and car owner Bud Gevens thought after yesterday, if the sun was out today, they'd be in big trouble. The clouds have actually helped them, and when I asked Bud, well, what specifically did you do? He agreed with Gary. We changed about everything. We weren't sure what we had, but we think we're glad it's cloudy, and guys, the way it looks, the weather is not going to change today. That'll bode well for St. Amant all day long.
Gary now runs in 3rd, Hansen is in 4th, and the man they're both chasing in the point standing, Sawinski, cruising around in 10th right now, Jim.
Cruising is a word, but I think Kevin's not gun shy, but the last couple races, the last 30 laps, he's had 2 problems. 2 races in a row, 2 problems. Crew chief Mike Chappie said, you know what, in the last 30 laps, if we're in contention, I'm leaving. I don't want to see it because they've been running top 5 and have had late race problems.
Tough day for Brad Loney. He's about to go down a lap in the Button Sabre number 33. Loney, the winner at I-70 earlier this year. Chilly day here at Jennerstown, but good racing on the track. Stay with us. To the Pennsylvania 400. You're watching it live today on TNN Motorsports. And this battle involves Junior Hanley in that 72 car, which just got really loose. He's in 6th. He's got Tom Jones right behind him in the 0 car. He's a lap down. Bob Seneker in the 84, the blue car, runs in 7th, and then Steve Holzhausen in the 5 runs in 8th. Now, we mentioned earlier, Jim, that Bob Seneker told us he's certainly lost more races than he won. Well, leave it to our crack statistician, Torch. Be careful what you asked for. You just might get it. Torch quickly got into his notes and found out Bob Seneker has lost only 287 races. That's still a batting average of 307. Not bad for the Bluebird.
And this being the time of baseball playoffs, you think about batting averages and numbers and players that are paid millions of dollars that can bat 300. Bob Seneker's made a living at racing for a long time, and he's batting 307 career in ASA.
And he has won over $1 million in ASA competition.
He and Mike Eddy have led that list for a number of years. They've actually went back and forth depending on paydays and race to race. They've raced for 27, at least Bob has, 27 years, darn near full time here in ASA. And Mike Eddy has been in a race in each of the 30 years of the American Speed Association heading into this season, this being the 30th anniversary running. The series based in Pendleton, Indiana. Now a 20 race, 10 state, $3+ million series in the AC-Delco Challenge Series.
One thing that hasn't changed with the ASAs is still great short track stock car racing. We're seeing some of that again here today. Holzhausen chasing Seneker and Hanley. 1 quarter complete here at Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. Still Mike Eddy leading this one.
A lot of teams were hoping to stay to about halfway before they pitted because of the weather factor and because they thought track position would be that great. We've only had 1 caution this afternoon on lap 22. Ed Smokestack was the only driver that pitted on lead lap at that time, but it really has cost some teams. Brad Loney started 3rd. He got a lap, started 5th. He got a lap down just as we went to our last commercial break. Mike Garvey, he started 3rd. He's backpedaled now and is 1 lap to the leaders on the racetrack. Also another update. Jimmy Johnson did pin under green for a right side tire that went down, and Harold Fair is back out after making some electronic component changes on the CarQuest Auto Pontiac.
Now in AC-Delco Challenge Series racing, there is a thing known as a competition yellow, which has been designed for the fans to keep the competition as close and as exciting as they can. There hasn't been a yellow after X amount of laps. They'll throw one once the field back up. If we do have a competition yellow, Jim, it's scheduled to fall in lap 129. We are currently working lap 103, about to go to 104.
That designed to keep the cars closer. They on a short track, less than a mile, it's a 100 lap span. On tracks a 1 mile or larger, it's a 50 lap span where you can see cars are getting loose out there, and it's actually a safety factor as well. The cars running that loose, running on the ragged edge, it saves them from green flag pit stops and getting down more laps and keeps it closer for the fans, as you mentioned.
Back up front to the lead. Mike Eddy has opened up a bit of a healthy lead over Mike Miller. They've been nose to tail. Now they got a couple of cars in between them. Dave Burns has more on the story.
Mike Eddy does something a little different when they do their tires, Ralph. They stack their tires high instead of laying them out. And I asked the crew why they did that, and they said, well, Mike can tell exactly where they are. You'd be surprised how he'll say, take the second one from the top and put it on the right front, or take the second one from the bottom, etc. It's just the way Mike thinks, and before every pit stop, he'll think about that in his mind, call out the tires that he wants in a stack instead of in a line.
Mike does a lot of things a little bit differently than a lot of other
I'm thinking Dave Burns better watch his arm swing, because if he knocks one of those tires off, that's going to goof up Mike Eddy altogether.
Boy.
I wouldn't want to face Mike Eddy if I knocked the tire stack over after the race.
I thought about that. His nickname was the Polar Bear. You don't want to knock the Polar Bear's tires over. Hoping to hear the Polar Bear maybe roar a little bit in victory lane here today. Mike Eddy leading after 107 laps of racing at Jennerstown. We're back to Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. Ralph Shaheen, Jim Trado, and Dave Burns along with you as T&M Motorsports brings you great short track racing live today from Pennsylvania. Jennerstown Speedway. Nice, big, wide, flat half mile. There's the gap back to second place where Mike Miller runs, chasing down Mike Eddy. Now, once they got through traffic, Jim, he started to close up a little bit again.
I don't think the second group is quite developed yet. A lot of the lap cars are drifting up because we've gone such a long time without a caution period that Mike Eddy has been tentative. When he gets through traffic, he opens it up a bit. When Mike Miller is clear of traffic, he closes back in. Keep in mind, Mike Eddy now has led over 1,300 laps of competition here at Jennerstown Speedway in 9 events. He's run here 11 different times and won 4 times, but trying to break that winless streak. That'll be a big monkey off the back for Mike Eddy and the entire team in the Goodrich Service Plus pits.
Competition yellow scheduled to be unfurled in about 10 laps.
Some of these teams are really looking forward to coming down pit lane, and I would think some of the teams, I would say the top 15 drivers that are on lead lap right now are somewhat satisfied with how they're running because they're starting to stretch out just a bit. You see Mike Eddy about to put a lap on Todd Forbes in the Axel Handler Ford. Forbes developed his own, I guess, a jig for replacing car rear ends. It's called the Axel Handler, where you can actually handle it just by being a single mechanic, and it's really taking off. His wife Larissa helping market that as well.
He'll get in the middle of this fight for the lead. Here's a look at the rundown after 120 laps of competition. Remember, that competition yellow is scheduled to come out on lap 129. You see Sawinski, the leader of the point standings, in 9th position. And you saw that Hansen and St. Amant running up inside the top 5. Rick Miller, the 31 car, looking about to go down a lap. Working our way back to 6th. There went 1st and 2nd. Here comes St. Amant. He is 3rd. 4th is the white 52. And then Handling right there in the white 72. And then Seneca and Holzhausen behind him.
5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th right on the racetrack off of turn number 2. Gary Terry in the Crookston Port Walls number 38 making his initial ASA start. Finished 3rd in the Kalamazoo Speedway Super Late Model points and was very excited about making the field today, and now he goes down a lap to this pack.
great side-by-side racing in the early stages of this one. Now I think with the extra laps on those tires, everybody being a little bit more conservative, waiting for that competition yellow maybe to come out in about 4 laps.
Holding their own, and I would say after that yellow is concluded, then we'll see what teams made the right call and which teams didn't. A lot of teams yesterday scuffed in tires under bright sunshine. Got a heat cycle on the tires. A lot of them scuffs them in. We'll see if they go to those, or if Ted Smokes had put on stickers, I'd ask his dad, Doug, I'd say, what'd you guys do, stickers or scuffs? If they went with stickers, I might want to pull out the brand new Goodyear Eagles and put them on my race car.
It is a spec-tired series. Goodyear Eagles that they run in the ASA series are bias ply tires, not radials. They're about $100 a corner, so $400 for a set compared to some $1,300 you might spend the radial tires that you see in Winston Cup and Busch Grand National competition. Those, of course, are radials. Well, the competition yellow is scheduled to come out in about another lap and a half.
Ferris pulled again behind the wall, and the gap is closed to within 2 inches. Bumper to bumper, Mike Eddy over Mike Miller, and the caution is out.
So the competition yellow waves at lap 129. Now, which tire out of the stack is Mike going to choose? Under yellow, you can change 2 tires in ASA.
Under any caution, only 2 tires. So if you came down pit lane 9 times, you can still only change 2 tires on any given caution. Only lead lap cars can pit this time by Ralph, and Mike Eddy will lead the charge down. Pit stalls were chosen based upon qualifications, and Mike Eddy has picked a spot all the way down towards turn 1, and teams like Mike Garvey and Rick Beebe have picked spots all the way down in turn 4, just as you come in the pit lane. Mike Miller's crew is pitting with Mike Eddy. Eddy's pit is 4th. Mike Miller's pit stall is the 3rd one. So they'll pit right close together, and it'll be a battle of the air guns.
Scott Hansen will be down there too, all the way down near turn 1. They'll be making their way down pit road. Gary St. Amant is pitted down more towards turn 4.
Hayes car and speed limit 35 miles per hour, and Eddy will lead him down with Mike Miller pitting 1 stall ahead, pulls even now.
And we're going to split the screen so you can watch them both and check in with Dave Burns for the call.
Mike Eddy, the leader, is in. They will go to the right side. A lot of the drivers are reporting tight or loose conditions. 2 guys that are not reporting any really bad conditions are Mike Miller and Junior Hanley. Eddy's crew to the right side and away, and Jack Man Dave Myers back with him. Part of the success there, we want to report that Dave's brother Roger had successful surgery this week. He's not out of the woods yet, but the first surgery was successful, and Mike Miller's got a big problem down here, guys.
Horrible pit stop going on for Mike Miller. Not sure what the problem is. Now they're going to the left side of the car.
Pace car's already on the front straightaway, so we'll see if this problem develops. They're not changing tires on the left-hand side. They're looking underneath his Hunt Oil Incorporated Pontiac.
What a shame, Jim. You need that top 5 finish.
Down a lap.
It'll be hard to get that now.
They've had to push the car now. We'll see if they push it.
And look at some of Mike Eddy's crew down there giving him a hand as well. Dave, what's the story?
And they unfortunately pulled right out in front of Billy Turner's pit. He wasn't able to come in off the lead lap. It is stuck in the wrong gear. He can't work the transmission. And of course, if they have to leave it in 1 gear, they'll try to leave it in high gear. But right now, they're having major transmission trouble.
Some of Mike Eddy's crew helping him get back underway, and some of Hansen's as well. We'll be back to Jennerstown. Mike Miller now 3 laps down.
Keep in mind the car has to be under its own power when it leaves pit lane. He's in the 3rd pit stall, so when they push start him to get going, they have to stop at the end of pit lane if the car's not fired yet.
And that's only 20 yards?
Yeah, if that 2 first downs, and they continue to look at, this is the 3rd time they've gone underneath the car. Again, they're trying to free up the linkage to get it to shift properly. Maynor over there from Hansen's crew trying to check things over with these guys. Carl Hound, the crew chief, underneath that car. Got to get up quite high. Carl's a big man.
About to go 4 laps down now. What a shame for Mike Miller.
came in second, planted their strategies, came down pit lane, pitted right with Mike Eddy. Gary St. Amant was the first car out of the pits. Scott Hansen was second. They pitted behind these guys, or actually St. Amant did. That might have excited Mike Miller just a bit. Might have caught 2 gears trying to get it out of the pit area.
Mike going to try to run the Winston Cup race at Atlanta coming up in November. He was hoping to run the last couple of ASA races. He sits 7th in the points. Was hoping to run the last couple of shows so he could try to get a top 10 finish in the points and get that big check at the end of the year. Sitting on pit road is not the way to do that. Gary St. Amant will lead him back to the green. He had a great pit stop. Hansen in second, Eddy in third, and look at this. Kevin Sawinski now to 4th. A good stop for him, Jim.
Great stop for him, and as he came out of the pit area, his crew was jacked up. He pit about halfway back. St. Amant was the first guy out. Then Hansen sneaked out just at the very end of pit lane, and Sawinski came flying down. Anytime you see that one car go by in a blur on a pit stop, it's a common occurrence here, but it also gets the other teams a little more excited because they know he can do it on the racetrack, and his crew certainly picks up spots consistently on pit lane.
And when the caution came out, he was running in about 9th position. Eddy to the inside of Hansen. Second place is his. Hansen shuts the door on Sawinski. And Gary St. Amant out front doing what he needs to do if he wants a shot at the title, and that's win races.
Well, Scott Hansen picked up 5 points for sitting on the pole. The top 5 are awarded points in each position, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you lead the most laps, you get 5 extra points, and any lap led is 5 points towards the championship. And Hansen, Eddy, and Gary St. Amant, the only 3 leaders of the race, have all done that, picked up those 5 points, but Gary looking for 5 more and perhaps his 4th victory, the most ever he'd ever have in a single season here today.
To the inside comes Sawinski. We're going to have to do a little business. Stay with us. We'll be back. Hopefully Mike Miller will be back racing. Tough break for Dave Sensiba, the West Michigan number 6 down pit road. Smork was pouring out of the back of that car. The crew will take a look under the hood. Mike Eddy, meanwhile, has taken over the lead while we were away, and here's how it happened. Going down into turn number 3, Gary St. Amant was the leader, but not when they came off of 4.
Nice smooth pass to the inside, set him up going in, and executed it by turn 1. And Gary has been running that middle line, so if Eddy wanted it that bad, he would have taken it because Gary had some room below him to make the pass. Look at the opening, the gap he opened up already.
Look at the fight for 3rd. Bob Seneker on the charge. On the outside is Sawinski. Kevin in the number 1, and Steve Carlson, the rookie of the year in the 87 car, behind him in 5th. Hansen has dropped all the way back to 6th, Jim.
And he's on the outside line and losing ground. Steve Holtzhausen now moves to the inside in that black 5 car. The Bangor, Wisconsin driver trying to put together 3 straight top 10s. He's had 2 in a row coming into this one.
And Rick Beebe is in this fight as well in the 23 car. He is inside of Hansen right now. It's first we've seen him up in this crew. There he is in the yellow car.
Beebe had a great practice runs, but in qualifying, just to tick off, he qualified 17th. So he's made his way charged thanks to the guys on pit lane. The St. Louis Gear Pontiac is handling well on the bottom as you see go to the inside of Scott Hansen, today's pole sitter.
Don't know if there's a problem with Scott Hansen's car, but he has definitely been dropping back since we restarted this one.
There again, that 2-tire change making the call. Hansen said he got the car to run in a loose condition, and with this being fresh tires, maybe the car's a bit too tight at this point and can't turn or stay on the gas as long as he'd like to, and he's backing up a bit.
Joe Knott, the Valvoline Raby Ford, car number 48. Jim Daly helping to spin the wrenches, and Tony Raines, the 1996 ASA champion, calling in some tips from home in Charlotte today as he watches here on TNN.
What if Tony called me? You know, I might need some tips up here in the broadcast booth. He's been watching these races at home when he's not racing. 1-800-555.
And it's clear behind him. Clear.
Listening to some of the spotters talking back and forth to their drivers.
Scott Hansen spotter Jeff Millar on the call there, telling him when to come down the racetrack.
We're also wired in with Kevin Sawinski and Brandon Sperling today. Johnson has really been on a tear of late, Dave, but he's slipping back now.
Well, they wanted to tighten him up just a little bit, but they tightened him up too much. They've got to go way the other way when he comes back in next time.
The 18 car officially out of the event due to transmission problems, so that's a tough break for Mike Miller. We'll have to see if Mike can financially make it work to get to Salem next week, which of course will be seen live here on TNN as well.
Dave Sensiba's car has been pushed behind the wall, so 2 drivers in the top 10 in the national championship points out early here at Jennerstown. Only one other car experiencing problems. That'd be Harold Fair, who continues to come in and out of the pit, so they'll be down in the 31st, 32nd place, somewhere in there in the rundown today.
Kevin Sawinski, he is well inside the top 10 in points. He leads them. He is fighting with Bob Seneca right now. Not exactly looking too far over his shoulder just yet. 2 weeks of DNFs. And a lot of other people looking at him wondering if that team was going to experience some serious bad luck or if it was just a hiccup on their way to the championship. He said if he could get through today, he feels the championship is his because he knows he'll run real strong at Salem and Kenley the last 2 races of the season. TNN will be with you all the way through the completion of the 97 ASA season as we march towards the championship, which will be handed out in Kenley, North Carolina at Southern National Speedway. You'll see it all live here on TNN. That's coming up in October. Kevin really likes both Salem and Kenley, Jim, and he thought this was the one racetrack between now and the end of the season where he didn't feel the best. Thought if anything could go wrong, it would happen here.
Another adaptation for Kevin Sawinski. This might not be his favorite racetrack, but Sawinski has done pretty decent here. Again, part of that top 10 string going into this just 2 races ago was a run here at Jennerstown Speedway. Back here in May, he had yet to finish outside the top 10 going into the last 2 events and has had problems late in the event. Caused maybe a slight second guessing on the team and if they're doing something right or doing something wrong. He was running top 5 a week ago when he and Ted Smokestad made contact late in the race at Hawkeye Downs.
Dave, what's the story with Dave Sensiba?
Well, he's standing by here. Dave, we know it was motor problems so far as the team inhibitor figured out. Is it terminal?
We're really not sure. PGG Trucking, jumped on board for us. We're sorry for them trying to help us out here, but we're going to see what's wrong and see if we can't get back out there and get some more points.
Okay, guys, they are going after every part of the motor, so they really don't know what the problem is yet. And he mentioned PTG Trucking. They've got connections in racing. You remember HS Dye that used to sponsor and still sponsors I'm going to say it, Tim Steele, who runs in the ARCA series. They are the preferred carrier for HS Dye out of Detroit.
And if Dave Sensiba and Mike Miller continue to have those problems, they're 5th and 6th in points. Guess who's 7th in points? Mike Addy. With his domination here today, if he can hold it all together, he could be looking at a shot at the top 5 in points before year's out, and that'd be a great advancement.
Talk about 180 degrees from where he was last year.
Even after the first 5 races of this season, it's been a great turnaround.
This is still a good fight here with Seneca and Sawinski.
Notice Bob found a 3rd groove up here. Look how high he gets. He's running right on the black. It'd be a cushion at a dirt track. He's right up at the edge of where the traction is.
Call him the sneaker. He always finds a way to sneak up to the front at the end of the race and be in contention for the win, and doing it here again today is Bob Seneca.
What I'm impressed with Bob Seneca, yes, he's been racing for 27 or 28 years in ASA, but he's never one to forget about how to learn. He's walked up and down pit lane yesterday. He felt his car was a tick off. He qualified 9th, but he walked over to Howie Letto, the crew chief for Baker Motorsports. He was asking about some shock changes. He looked at the front brake rotors with him. He's always studying the sport, trying to advance his own car and learn more about how these things may handle.
And one of only a couple of cars in the series that's actually designed and built at home. Now, every one of the center sections in ASA competition comes from Howe Engineering, but what you do to the front and rear clip is up to you. You can either buy one from Port City or Howe or Rander Car, as a lot of people do, or you can design your own within the rules. Bob Seneca and Mike Miller have both done that, although their designs are radically different.
Yeah, the center sections you've got to buy from ASA. How Enterprises makes the center section, and then the front clip and rear clip, all the suspension and fuel cell and everything bolts onto that can be modified within a degree or two. And Seneca built his own in his own shop. Mike Miller, heck, he went to a computer-aided design system to design the proper degrees and angles for his geometries.
Unfortunately, the problems for Mike Miller were not with the chassis today, Dave.
Mike, we were hearing that early on it was transmission trouble. Is that what put you out today?
Yeah, something, I think it was in the shifter. Something broke in the shifter, and the only gear I could select was reverse. I don't know what happened.
Now, we were just talking about the radical design you have as far as the chassis is concerned. That had nothing to do with the shift linkage or anything. That's all standard?
Yeah, that's pretty standard stuff.
Okay, what about next week, Mike?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is 3 weeks in a row now that we probably had the fastest car and weren't able to win the race. I'd like to thank Dwight Weigel from Hunt Oil Company for helping us out this weekend. He's a prince of a man, and he really did us a great favor, and I really appreciate it, Dwight. Thank you very much, sir.
And you know, guys, if Mike can be there next week, he will be.
Dave, we're starting to see some raindrops on the cameras. Can you feel it down there? We'll have to check in with Dave on that.
Absolutely, Ralph.
Yes.
It's starting to sprinkle down here. It's kind of a fine mist right now, so that's all we're seeing, but we're definitely wiping the lenses down here, and you know the drivers can see that out there, so the laps are going to be important now.
Well, Jim, and we were talking about this is already a little bit of a slippery racetrack. Now with some water down there, as you can see from this camera down in turn 3, there's definitely some sprinkles on the lenses.
Light mist, and we are 25 laps away from the halfway point. ASA races can be run to halfway and called complete, so with just being a light mist, we'll continue under green and hopefully go to the finish of 400 laps, but it will be called an event, not after the 5th inning, but after lap 201.
Mike Eddy, I guarantee you, doesn't want to win one the easy way. He wants to win it the hard way. He wants to earn one. He's trying to do that today. 175 laps completed. Well, the last time an ASA race was stopped early due to weather was August 23rd, 1992. It was a 500 lap race in Calgary, Canada, which was seen live right here on TNN. And it wasn't, even though it was August, Jim, it wasn't stopped due to rain. It was stopped due to snow.
I recall your snowball fight with Mike Eddy.
Yeah, Mike Eddy was the winner that day. Johnny Benson came home in second. Gary St. Amant was third, and Mark Martin sat on the pole that day.
Mark, of course, a 3-time ASA champion. Looking for his first Winston Cup championship as Kevin Sawinski looking to nail down his first ASA championship a year after winning the Pat Shaw Memorial Rookie of the Year.
I'll tell you what, Jim, it's getting a little damp out there, too. It is definitely getting damper, and
the drops are now visible to the eye. If you look in the changing colors of the trees, you can certainly see drops. We'll see if we can continue here. Lap 186 of 400.
Well, and you can see pit road getting a little darker, that the pavement changing color due to the wetness.
That's always a concern at any racetrack. You have 9 degrees banking here and 6 on the straightaways, but it still has a pitch to it. Pit lanes most often are flat or off camber, which could create some puddles in the pit area, which would make it impossible to pit on a wet surface for tire changing.
Boy, these two have been going at it all day, haven't they?
This has been the race so far, with the lead being swapped back and forth between Hansen and Eddy. Once the leaders have gotten the lead, they've gone away. Here, for the last, I would guess, 40 laps, we've seen Bob Seneca and Kevin Sawinski. Sawinski taking the inside, Seneca on the outside, and Bob for the last couple of laps has opened up to about a 2-car length lead, and that's about the largest it's been. Going into turn 3 here, you see the different lines going in. Seneca working that outside line.
Bob driving the Ford Thunderbird, and Kevin Sawinski the Pontiac Grand Prix. And that one car looks pretty good, Dave.
They sure do, Ralph, and you can call it bouncing back, I think, at this point in the race. After talking with car owner Scott Lefebvre last Friday night, they were pretty cool and calm about the whole thing, even though they'd had those DNFs. They know that in life the highs are not as high as they used to be, the lows are not as low. This is racing, and they'll just stick in here and battle. Don't count them out of the championship yet.
Considering that Bob Seneca has won here 3 times and led a bunch of laps and won that spectacular race a couple of seasons ago to finish the season, Kevin Sawinski's worst race of the year to halfway was right here at Jennerstown. He finished 9th. That was the only time the first 10 races of the year he finished off lead laps. So for him to run with Seneca, I think it's certainly a marked improvement testament for the Tecumseh Motorsports team and how they prepared for this race here at Jennerstown.
If Kevin comes out of here with a top 5, he will count that as a victory.
Certainly will. 149 points the difference. Back to Gary St. Amant. Another 23 back to Scott Hansen, who sat on the pole for this race, but has struggled after this most recent caution. And with Swinski and Seneca running. Seneca, heck, he's got a great string of top 5s going here, and he may build on that and maybe nail down number 84 before this race is over.
Slipping and sliding and cautiously dancing their way around the half mile here at Jennerstown. Bob Seneca and Kevin Swinski going at it. The leader, Mike Eddy, going around Mike Gopher's Black & Decker 79. We're coming back to Jennerstown, Pennsylvania 400. Stay with us. Last week at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Mike Eddy finished 11th, 1 lap down, but he was arguably the fastest car on the racetrack. He had a tire go flat on him that he had to come in and change. That's what put him down a lap. Maybe today, Jim, everything stays straight. He's going to finally find himself a victory lane at 97.
Certainly has the strongest car here today thus far. 202 laps are in. The rain has subsided momentarily. Mike Eddy continues to wax him here at Jennerstown, a racetrack where he's dominated.
Well, the good thing is we've stayed green, and that has kept the cars going around the track, kept the heat in the track, and that has kept the track surface nice and dry. Now, 12 cars are still on the lead lap. We've had 3 leaders, a handful of lead changes.
All 3 drivers picking up 5 extra points for leading a lap, and we see 3 drivers struggling. Harold Fair, Mike Miller, and Dave Sensible, all top 10 in the points. Big blow for their efforts.
Sawinski finally got around Bob Seneca. Now let's show you how it happened. These two went to war for numerous laps, and a yellow flag is out. But let's show you the replay.
It's been a 40-lap struggle, and finally, as they approach traffic, Sawinski to the inside, Billy Turner, middle of the racetrack, helped him a little bit as Turner drifted up. There went Sawinski for the 4th position.
Due to the rain is why the yellow flag is coming out. It has started to intensify. Crews are scrambling to cover up their pit stalls to keep those as dry as they can.
You might think I'm nuts, but I said the rain did subside. Now another cloud just kind of came over and opened up again. It was a little bit brighter about 10 minutes ago, and now the tire pins are being put down on pit lane to save those pit stalls from getting any moisture. 1993, there was actually enough rain here to stall the race a complete day.
Yep.
It went 274 laps of the 400. Tom Jones was the last guy in lead lap. They all pulled in along the pit wall, put tarps on the cars, and decided, okay, we need to red flag the race. We'll run the rest of it tomorrow. During that red flag, Tom Jones noticed that he had a radiator hose problem. They had to change the radiator and the hose. And in ASA, you can work on a car under red flag conditions, but start at the back of the line. Jones did that and went on to win his only ASA race.
And on Monday afternoon, Johnny Benson Jr. was crowned AC-Delco Challenge Series champion. Well, we'll take a quick break as the track drying begins here. 206 laps completed in the scheduled 400 in the Pennsylvania 400. From the first half of the Pennsylvania 400 here at Jennerstown. Now the ASA radar is showing that there's some 15 to 20 minutes of light drizzle, about a 1-hour window after that. Now the light drizzle might not necessarily mean that we have to stop racing, Jim. We might not be down for all 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how heavy that drizzle is. They keep rolling the cars around here, keep putting heat in the track. Might be able to actually go back to green.
Yeah, under this light rain condition, probably the worst thing they could do is stop the race cars. The heat, the tires, everything heating up on the racetrack. The cars are running at temperature. If they did stop it, then the rain would have a chance to seep in and start running around this racetrack, and pit lane would be continue to be worked on by the crews, but they came prepared, and fortunately for these teams at this racetrack, they can actually pit their haulers right in the infield, so they have all the equipment they need right on board.
going down pit road. He's had a horrible day today for the 33 car. They've been in and out of pit road a few
He came in the pits last time. They went under the hood, so perhaps it was a plug wire or something like that. Let's find out more from Dave Burns.
They are having a horrible day, and it's just getting worse. They're going to go ahead and change left side tires, but it's well outside of their reach to have a top 10 finish here today. They've dropped a cylinder, so that Bun Saber Pontiac is operating on only 5.
Gets it going and rolls out. You can see all the donuts on the left side of the car. He's had an active day behind the wheel.
That was within the first 15 laps as he was battling up front, trying to hold on a position with Junior Hanley. They swapped a couple of donuts back and forth, and Brad unfortunately has struggled since, and the 72 car of Hanley's been able to hold on and hang on a lead lap. Brad has been shown 3 laps down and now loses a cylinder.
Well, while they're under yellow, that's a good opportunity for us to do a little business. So when we come back and they go green, we'll be able to show you as many laps as we possibly can. Stay with us. We're back to the Pennsylvania 400, Jennerstown Speedway in Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. We're about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, south of the Steel City. Ralph Shaheen, Jim Trado, and Dave Burns along with you. We've got some radios wired into some of our cars today. We're going to start things off by talking to the driver of Kenny Schrader's number 52. That's Scott Hansen. Scott, Ralph Shaheen from TNN. Can you hear us?
Go ahead, bro.
Scott, you were really strong early on, but after the competition, you started to slip back a little bit. What's going on with your Chevy today?
Well, we just come in, changed the tires, got a little bit too tight, and lucky we got this caution, hope the rain goes away, but I think we got it corrected now. You know, a lot of these guys didn't fit. You know, we got our tire stagger open back up, so hopefully we're in good shape.
Scott, you took a pretty wild ride at the end at Cedar Rapids. How are you feeling? Are you okay after that big hit?
Yeah, we're okay. We put in back support in the car and stuff. One thing I did do is the seat spread open a little bit. I guess I didn't pay any attention to it, but we needed just to readjust that for next week, so we'll be all right.
All right, Scott, best of luck to you today. Okay, we'll go ahead and switch over now and talk to one of the other drivers out there in the field. That's Brandon Sperling, the driver of the Truck Air Transfer number 51. Brandon, Ralph Shaheen with TNN Motorsports. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Ralph.
Brandon, how bad is the rain out there right now? Do you think you'll be able to go back green here shortly?
It doesn't seem too bad. There's still a lot of grip on the track. It's got back and forth. It's not sliding yet, so I think we can keep racing.
Now, I know the car that you crashed at Cedar Rapids was your favorite. How is the 51 you have here today?
This is our backup car and our backup motor, so it's not the best we got. So we just want to try to finish this race up, try to get a top 10 if we could.
All right, Brandon, good luck to you this afternoon here at Jennerstown.
Thanks, Ralph.
Brandon Sperling and Scott Hansen getting ready to maybe shortly go back to green. Jim, the track doesn't look too bad, but you know, last week, Brandon, we talked about him being forced to the backup car. Take a look at the incident with him and Johnny Spawn, the raging inferno that this thing just ignites into. Johnny Spawn, the silver 03, it's actually the back end of his car. Now, we thought that the fuel cell might have ruptured. Actually, it was the lines on the fuel that came off, and ASA has taken a look at that and has sent technical bulletins out to all their teams. They changed the way the lines went into the fuel cell for this weekend. They think that might hopefully be the last time we see a fire like that. Fortunately, you see Brandon already out of the 51. Johnny Spa will come out of that car shortly.
Both drivers were okay in this incident. However, Brandon said he was awfully sore and stiff the next day. Took a hard impact in the wall and actually had no brakes going up to the wall or steering once he made contact with the 03 of Spa. And we see Johnny climbing out there, the Cedar Rapids, Iowa native.
Look at that fire. A frightening moment at Hawkeye Downs at Cedar Rapids, Iowa last Friday night.
Ask any race driver in any series, what's your worst fear? Number one answer is fire. Luckily, those guys came out okay.
So Brandon forced to the backup car for the Truck Air Transfer 51 and backup motor. just a little bit softer, about 50 horsepower down. Junior Hanley was looking pretty good early on, Dave.
Sure was, Ralph, and there's a lot of ways you can try to win an ASA, and one of them might be to have some guys on your team that really know what's going on. Well, Junior Hanley has hired 4 former ASA officials to be on his crew chief. Jeff Brown, Jay George, Roger Adam, and Red Fight all formerly worked for ASA. So if anyone's going to know how to, let's say, be creative and maybe win a race out here for Junior Hanley, it's these guys.
That's like putting Gary Nelson back on a team times 4.
Yeah, catch the cheaters, hire the best cheater, right?
Junior's having a good run here today, though. It's good to see. You mentioned a season best of 4th, 5-time winner in the AC-Delco Challenge Series, and anytime they put up series money in Canada, 50 grand to win, 100 grand to win, Junior never lost. I don't think in 3 years running, back in the late 80s when it came down to getting home some serious cash.
Well, right now, Junior would like to see the green flag wave, as would we, so we can go racing for all the money that's up for grabs here today. That's Brian Robbins, the vice president of the series, going for the high-tech radar. John, let's take a quick. Again, this season here at the AC-Delco Challenge Series Racing, you have the opportunity to win a unit in Bearcat scanner, along with a 1-year Racers Frequency membership from Racing Electronics. But just send your name and address on a postcard to Racing Electronics, P.O. Box 241921, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. We'll announce the winner during each ASA telecast here on TNN throughout the year, so send in your card today. Now, this week's winner is Dan Crawford from St. Charles, Michigan. Dan, enjoy your scanner from Racing Electronics, and congratulations to you.
See a whole bunch of red headsets in the grandstand. They're official communication supplier of the AC-Delco Challenge Series, and they let us talk to the drivers. So we want to thank Racing Electronics for doing that.
Yale Conley, the good doctor as we call him, Dr. Yale Conley, back racing with the ASA Series after taking some time off due to some medical situations. We had an opportunity to talk to the doc yesterday about what took place and how it was coming back to ASA racing.
I'll be honest, I was a little scared at first. I was nervous. We went to Salem last Wednesday and tested with a fellow named Jeff Foltz. And so I got about 5 minutes in the car before the sun set, so we got it right. But everything went great yesterday. After I got in, the jitters got out, and I'm happy again. I'm getting to do what I want. Well, I do have a pacemaker. It only works when I need it. And we're anxious to see how the car handles this because it senses motion and all that. So I'm going to have it tested when I get back. But as far as my health, it's good. I want to thank everybody for everything they've done. I've gotten a lot of phone calls, cards, prayers, and everybody's been very supportive of my family. Not only have I became ill, but I've had some other members, and Wayne, our chaplain, excellent man, and everybody in ASA, and I just appreciate that. It's been overwhelming. Glad to be back.
Yale Conley started 24th today, and he currently runs 18th in the West Virginia Motor Speedway Chevy. It's good to see Yale Conley back here with us today.
Part of the reason why he's been away from the series for as long as he has is because he mentioned the pacemaker being installed to monitor the heart rate. It's actually placed right above the left chest where a seatbelt will go in a race car. So that had time to heal, and he said it drove him nuts, but his wife Carmen and the gang have him under control now. He's only doing 5 or 6 operations a day instead of 7 or 8. He really had a busy schedule prior to his problem, and they've got it all fixed, and he's ready to go racing. Jeff Foltz will be in a car at Salem along with Yale this coming Sunday.
And you'll see that right here on TNN Motorsports, as you will with the season finale from Kenly, North Carolina at Southern National Speedway. Just 2 races to go after today towards the completion of the 97 season.
Continues to be a slight steady rain. We see the fans that did come protected, put on the ponchos, the other ones that were brave enough to bring an umbrella to the racetrack, which I always think is bad luck, but they're making use of it today as we're up here in the booth inside. They are making their adjustments accordingly.
A lot of people getting out of the weather and underneath the grandstands right now. So we'll get out from underneath this too and take care of a little more business so that when we come back, we can show you more live green flag racing for the Pennsylvania 400. A trip to Jennerstown, Pennsylvania means a lot of things for a lot of people. A stop at the Rockin' R is a must anytime you come to this sleepy little town. Great place to go for lunch or dinner. Favorite hangout of the ASA traveling circus. It's literally just outside of turn number 2, about what would you say, 200-300 yards up the hill?
Well, about 2 miles away is an awesome go-kart track, the Outlaws Family Entertainment Center, where I happened to do some laps with Gary St. Amant and Steve Carlson and a bunch of ASA crew guys, but I never got to race Steve Carlson or his jackman Dan Mills.
Well, if you can't catch him, Jim, you can't race with him.
No, it wasn't a problem with that. They were racing together on the outside track.
Sure.
They only got one visit on the outside track, and they were booted off. And then they went to the indoor kart track, which was awesome. They're a little slick track, and they ended up on top of each other at the end of their only time in that racetrack, and they were asked to leave there, too. So, I don't know.
Imagine that. Dave, what's up with the 52?
And by the way, Ralph, I heard Trado was a terror too, so don't let him kid you. You know, Ken Schrader, as a car owner for Scott Hansen, knows that in order to build a winning program, he has to give his team the best week in and week out, the best equipment, the best facilities, and every once in a while he brings in something new that can really change things for the team and give them that extra little oomph they need. So what would that be this weekend? That secret weapon that they brought in that we talked about when we talked earlier on race day today. Something that will give them the advantage, something to let them race with and beat the big dogs. Behold.
Very nice. Take mine with a little mustard and just a dash of relish there, please, Dave.
I think I'm going right to that hauler after this race is over. Looks kind of hungry. I'm kind of hungry. Looks kind of good.
Didn't look like there were many left.
Well, we'll see.
Well, they had said 15 to 20 minutes of a light drizzle. That was about 10 minutes ago, so hopefully this will be finishing up pretty quick. Now, here's a look at the point standings if it was red flagged right now as to where they're running.
This is where they're running on the racetrack right now, Ralph. Sawinski, this is by points, top 10 in points. And on the right-hand side, you see where they're running in position on the racetrack at 235 laps. Sawinski's 4th. St. Amant running in 3rd, so you'll gain a few points on Sawinski, who has yet to lead today. Gary's already led a lap. Hansen's currently back in 9th. We talked to him about his advancement and how they had to loosen the car up a bit. Beebe's in 7th, Carlson's 2nd, but look where Sensiba and Miller are. And the advantage Mike Eddy may gain, he's in 1st on the racetrack, and if he wins this deal today, he very well could be breathing down Steve Carlson's neck for top 5 in points. Harold Fair having problems as well in 32nd position. Continues to make laps, and unfortunately for Sensiba and Miller, their problems came early, and they're the first 2 cars out of the race.
Well, we're not giving up on this one yet. It continues to drizzle here at Jennerstown, but the officials talking things over. Some of the die-hard ASA followers sticking it out here at Jennerstown. Waving here at Jennerstown, so that means all the drivers have made their way down to pit road. There you see Rex Robbins just past Kay Gundrum there. Rex, of course, the president of the American Speed Association, the man that has gotten this series up and running and has done such a wonderful job in getting us this fantastic series. Steve Farmer and some of the other ASA officials helping to cover up some of the cars. Now, we will stick with this for a while. They have not made any decisions as to whether or not this race will be called or whether or not we're just going to delay this for a little bit. They're going to keep an eye on the radar here for a little while. Mike Eddy is listed as the leader with 236 laps completed. He is out of the car and standing by with Dave Burns.
Well, this is great, Ralph, because this is the first time mid-race this year that I'm talking to Mike Eddy, and it's not because of something bad other than weather. So how's the car running, Mike? It looks pretty hot.
Yeah, it's been just working flawlessly today. It's really good.
Now, what about the track conditions as we were getting close to the red flag and the yellow flag situation there? Did it really start to grease up on you? Were you having to watch it pretty close?
Yeah, about from lap 170 on, it was getting pretty slick, and you know, it was getting hard to see where the dry spots were, and then you know, it kept getting slipperier and slipperier, and I guess it was inevitable they're going to have to throw the red.
Mike, where is the car right now? You made the one stop. You got it obviously very good because you're leading the race. How many more stops do you need today when we go back to green?
Well, when we go back, I'll probably make 1, maybe 2 more.
All right, and we'll hopefully be with Mike Eddy at the end of today's race to break that dry spell.
Mike Eddy's led 194 laps today. We mentioned how he can put it on to the rest of the competitors here, and certainly he's trying to do that. And Steve Carlson has worked around Gary St. Amant under that last green flag segment, so he's now 2nd on the board as St. Amant's 3rd, Kevin Sawinski 4th, and Bob Seneca 5th. We saw how that pass was made.
Well, that wasn't where Gary wanted to see. Kevin was so close to him, but Steve Carlson, as we said, will be crowned the Pack Shower Rookie of the Year this year at the banquet. Dave is with him.
Well, and he's getting some instruction or something here from St. Amant. What's he telling you, Steve?
Oh, I don't know.
Is he telling you about the go-kart track last night or something?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I bet he is. How good is your Pontiac right now? You were with Mike, and you were kind of coming on there at the end. Did you hate to see this yellow?
Yeah, I did. This car's working super. We had kind of a bad qualifying run. We started 14th. We're going right to the front. This thing's fast.
Now, are you staying in here because you didn't want to come out and talk to me? A lot of the drivers have gotten out, but you just stayed strapped in there. Are you thinking this thing's going to get back quick, or is that some sort of a tradition that you have? You just stay in the car and wait the thing out?
No, I'm just resting, I guess. That's all.
Just like his go-karting, guys. He doesn't know why he does what he does, but it usually seems to work for him.
Well, some drivers just feel more comfortable in the race car, too.
And Scott Hansen, before the race, had a bit of a back problem. He said, man, once I get sitting in that race car, all my pains will go away because I'll be focused on the race. But Steve Carlson didn't have a lot of seat time down there, Dave Burns, because he was asked to leave after each of his only 2 rounds of the outdoor and indoor track. So he was doing a lot of watching last night as we got out there and cut it up with some of the teams.
Sleep 2 or 3 times.
Gary Santamont is out. He's talking with Dave as well. Huh?
Yeah, we're getting every comment we can out of Gary because he usually has something to say. What were you saying to Carlson there?
Well, we were at the go-kart track last night.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, Steve. I really didn't see him beating and banging on anyone. I know one of his crew members was beating and banging pretty hard, and they both got kicked off. I told Steve before the race today, I said, Steve, take it easy on everyone today because we want to be able to race with you there at the end, and make sure you don't get kicked out of here. So.
Hey, I don't think we've ever seen an ASA driver actually get kicked out. How good is your car right now? Good to the end, or do you guys need to make some changes when we get back close to green? And will you give up track position to do that?
Well, I'll tell you, the Wins Monte Carlo is pretty fast right now. Steve, he come from nowhere. I looked back and I saw him and Seneker and Sawinski all racing for position, and next thing I know, I look in my mirror and he's right on my bumper, and whenever a car is as fast as what the 87 car was there, you let him go, and I just kind of moved up and I gave him some racetrack and let him go, and then I saw what he was doing. He was kind of hanging out on the bottom of the racetrack, and I think it might have been a little bit drier down there, and once he got by, I kind of moved down to where he was running on the track, and it kind of helped us out.
Gary, you've had an incredible year. You've had the best equipment you've ever got. You were screaming on the radio at Milwaukee that you loved your car. You love Jennerstown. It owes you. I mean, what are your chances today, and what are the chances of gaining in the points on Kevin Sawinski?
Well, we've gained a little bit on the points, not really enough to make a big dent out of the whole thing, but it's going to be awful tough to beat that black 88 today. Yesterday in practice we saw how fast he was, and, awful tough to beat him. And I think me and Steve here, we could probably have a pretty good race here for the second place.
And you don't care about the #1 car where he finishes?
Well, we'd like to see, we'd like to pick up a few more points and just him finishing 1 spot behind us, but, we'll take that. It's been a real good year for us, and Kevin's had an exceptional year, and just like he said I think it was last week, he said, if it wouldn't have been for him, having his exceptional year, we'd have a real good season going, which we do.
And they've done just about everything right, guys. And one thing we haven't practiced for a while, like you said, is a weather-related stoppage here. So we'll chase these guys around, find out what they're doing during this delay.
Jim, arguably, it's the best season Gary's ever had in ASA racing.
It's his best statistically. He's led more races. He led more laps. He's had a great string, 9 top 10 finishes, 9 top 5 finishes, plus a couple more top 10. So, yeah, you take away that X factor of Kevin Sawinski, and St. Amant could well have been on his way to a championship season. He's still not out of it. 149 points difference. He'll gain 10 points on Sawinski if things stop now, which hopefully they won't. So that's another little added dig. He's gained 75 points in the last 2 races on Kevin Sawinski. So he's been chomping away on the positive side of things. So keeping Sawinski behind him is a good thing for St. Amant's team, and Sawinski trying to rebound, get a top 5, take those points off the October 5th and when we run at Salem, Indiana. Most of the fans and teams have taken shelter. See the stands have emptied out. I'm sure the concession sales are going gangbusters, and saw a moment ago Bob Seneker himself actually putting some tarps on top of his equipment. So hopefully that won't be too long before we get back green.
Well, now here is a look at the top 25 with 236 of 400 laps completed. Now we are going to go away for a little while the ASA officials figure out what it is they're going to do here today. You will see when we return the race of the week from TNN. It will be the Copper Classic coming to you from a very sunny and very dry Phoenix International Raceway from earlier this year. But stay tuned and keep checking in with us, because we will let you know for sure what will happen with the Pennsylvania 400. Will it be called here with 236 laps of 400 completed and Mike Eddy the winner, or will we get to see the finish under green here this afternoon? Dave Burns and Jim Trado, I'm Ralph Shaheen. There is Kevin Sawinski. This one isn't over yet. They have not called it, but you will see some of the Copper World before we are done here today. So stay tuned to TNM Motorsports for the latest update on the Pennsylvania 400. It's raining right now, but we are not calling this race yet. Pennsylvania. A lot of the fans have stuck it out with us. We hope you are happy to see the ASA back rolling around the Jennerstown Speedway. Here's the way it looks right now with the top 10, where they started and where they are currently running. We have 236 laps completed. We have been down for about a half an hour. The cars came to a red flag stop on the racetrack, and shortly thereafter, when we left you and sent you off to Phoenix, Arizona, we were able to get some personal cars out on the track, some service vehicles from the Speedway, help dry the track. You can see the nice gray coloring coming through the racetrack. About 5 minutes ago, they got the drivers in their cars and got the race cars going again. And now they're, Jim, drying all the way up to the upper groove here. So we are just about set to go racing, I think.
And 7 of the teams on lead lap, of the 13 on lead lap, came down pit lane almost immediately after the red was pulled and the yellow was brought out. They've not counted any laps, but 7 of those teams have pitted. A total of 9 have pitted under this brief shower, then the red flag, and then the when we went back to caution laps here that aren't counting. But one guy that didn't pit is Mike Eddy.
Yeah, the good news is we've done a lot of laps under yellow, which conserves fuel. Bad news is we've done a lot of laps under yellow, so we've been burning up some fuel. Jim or Dave, what are they going to do pit strategy-wise for Mike?
All right, we're going to ask him right now. It's getting tense down here. What are you going to do, Howard? Why did you stay out this time?
Well, we stayed out because they're talking like they're going to run another 5-10 minutes, and who knows about the weather. We want to keep up front as long as we can. We will come in and change left sides before we go back green.
All right, so that's their plan. Right before this thing goes green again, if the rain hasn't come, they're going to come in and change the tires probably on the right side for Mike. Now, the rules during the red flag are that during that time, you can change anything on the car you want to. You can work on the car if you want to, and you can only change 2 tires. Several teams chose to do that. One team that was really fortunate was Mike Coper's team. They had a bad vibration, and they changed the whole front right rotor assembly on the Black & Decker Chevy.
Well, that's pretty good strategy, I think, on Howard Thomas and Mike Eddy's part, Jim. If he can stay out there, who knows, the skies could open up again. They would have been at the tail end of the field.
And he led early on, and he has a dominant car. So if there's any sort of extended green flag like we've seen with the car as well as he's running and the very few number of cars that are behind pit wall, the lap cars become a factor. Track position is everything at that point in the race. And who knows, as Howdy Thomas said, when the clouds may open up again.
So they continue to dry the racetrack here at Jennerstown, Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania 400 continues to work its way closer towards the finish. And the ASA officials seem to think, Jim, that once we're able to go back to racing, that maybe we have a good hour's worth of a window, and with 236 laps completed of the scheduled 400, we should be able to squeeze that last remaining 100-plus laps in here.
Now the question is, do the guys have enough fuel? We've run a lot of caution flag laps. Mike Eddy only came in once for right side tires, lap 130, so he's gone at least 100 laps, most of those under caution, at least 30 to 35. And now I understand Mike Eddy's coming down pit lane.
Yep, this is what we were waiting for. Mike Eddy now brings that Goodwrench Service Plus Pontiac down pit road. Howard Thomas and the rest of the crew will go to work. Dave?
And they're going to go to the left side. Most teams thought that they could make one left side change today. Mike has already changed the rights. They're going to make a left side change now. Get him back down and out of here. They don't really have to hustle too much. They just have to get him back out because he will rejoin at the end of the field.
That will give the lead to Scott Hansen, who pitted on lap 207 just before the caution went red. You can follow along with that. We had a number of yellow flag laps, I believe 35 total. Then the red flag was displayed. Now we've gone for about the last 15 minutes under a slow pace, not counting laps. But under that situation until now, Mike Eddy was the last of those lead lap guys to come down pit lane.
Jimmy Johnson now brings the Ford car down pit road. He'll take on right side tires and fuel.
They had a green flag pit stop, and unfortunately for Jimmy, he went down a lap or two and has been credited with 24th to this point, 4 laps down. So Jimmy Johnson and that entire crew working how they can. And he was really excited after last race. And a number of the veterans, considering Jimmy Johnson's extensive off-road background, 6 or 7 years doing that. He's only 22 years of age, but considering the experience he had last week, his first ever pavement race, the veterans had high praise for the youngster out of California.
Scott Hansen's crew chief is Lynn Miller, who's standing by with Dave Burns.
And right now their strategy looks pretty good, Ralph, because even though they're just 4th in the queue, they are leading the race. What about it? Good strategy to the end, or are you counting on some wet weather?
Well, I think we got the car right now. We were a little bit tight in it last session. We opened it up, took a chance, and the rain came out. Knew everyone else would have to pit if the rain quit, which it did. So it looks like that gamble paid off. I hope we made the right adjustment on the car now. We were a little bit off, but I think we'll be okay now. It's hard to say. I've heard rumors that we're only going to run to 300. I don't know. I'd like to see it run 400. Beat them the way we had to beat them.
All right, we'll find out as they're getting ready to go back to green.
That would be just a rumor. We have heard nothing of the kind. The lights are off on the pace car, and the Jennerstown racetrack about to get angry again as the Pennsylvania 400 is about to get restarted. 236 laps of the scheduled 400 are complete. Doug Mayer will be the first car across the line, but the car that is 4th in line, Scott Hansen, is the race leader in car 52. We're green once again at Jennerstown. After some 30 to 40 minutes of a rain delay, we are back racing.
Scott Hansen putting a lap on the birthday boy, Rick Miller. Celebrated his 39th birthday here yesterday. Unfortunately, Rick's not had a great day. He's 4 laps down in 25th, now making 5 laps down for Miller in the 31.
Oh, and Yale Conley goes around. And so does Tom Jones. And Bob Seneker back in the pack.
Seneker was caught up in an incident last race because he pitted early. Was at the back of the pack, and as he said, quote, I ran with the slower cars and got in trouble. Here, he spins to avoid, or perhaps he'll get position back here. But anytime you're involved in a spin, it's a blend-in rule here in ASA, so he will be at the back with Tom Jones once you get back green.
Don't know if that was adrenaline from getting restarted involved in there, or if it was a slippery racetrack that began that.
Yeah, with how precious the tires are and how much he slid, might have flat spotted. You can only change 2 on any caution here in ASA. We'll see if that will have an effect.
Well, it looks like some guys are going to take advantage of this and dive down pit road. Look at this. Here comes a whole host of them. Now, you can be sure that everybody's going to maybe top off, Jim, those that did not, that did those extra couple of laps under yellow. Mike Eddy's coming back down. You think he might take those new right side tires now and go all the way to the finish? Scott Hansen's pit is active, Dave.
The leader now gives up the lead, Ralph. They're going to go to the right side. As you speculated, Mike Eddy's crew is going to go to the right side. Hansen had a lot of positions to lose. Eddy had really no positions to lose. Hansen is down and away. Sawinski, Knott, Beebe, and Holshausen, along with Gary St. Amant, also made stops. And by the way, kudos to Holshausen's crew, because when everybody came in the last time, right during the red flag, they were first out. So they've had a great afternoon already.
Let's take a look at this replay and see if we can figure out what was going on. Watch the white number 3 at the top here. Rick Miller racing with Yale Conley.
Right in front of the leader. That white car in the middle there is 52. Scott Hansen, the leader of the race.
Joey Knott does a good job of missing him in the 48.
Now, we saw B.J. McLeod, who did not make the field, spin in the very same place on the racetrack in qualifications and the last chance race.
Well,
no
contact like he
there.
lost it all by himself, Jim.
Just got clipped by the 31 car, and around he went. And Tom Jones, you can see, he might have got tapped. He did get tapped by Garvey there trying to get on the brakes.
And
at the
meanwhile, there goes Seneker.
Very right of the screen, you see the blue car getting sideways.
One more look at it. Could have been the loose, slippery racetrack with the tires after the rain.
Just kicked out on him like that.
Yeah. Scott actually banged the nose a little bit into him once he'd already started spinning. Obviously didn't cause the spin, but hopefully didn't do any damage to the 52. It looked like it was soft enough of a tap that it might have just flexed that fiberglass nose a little bit and popped it right back into position. We're back to green. Ted Smokestad in the 32 car. The red, white, and blue trim plastic build-a-mold number 32 is your leader. Carlson in the 87 car has 4 cars between him and Smokestad. He runs in second.
These are the first laps Ted Smokestad has led all season long.
Oh, we got a problem coming out of turn number 4. Gary St. Amant is involved. He's got heavy damage. Billy Turner is in there.
Billy
As
Turner
is the 67 car. That is Sean Dupuis out of Windsor, Ontario. But Gary St. Amant, Steve Holzhausen with big damage, Rick Beebe with big damage, and Jack Landis up against the wall. The biggest story in that whole mess is going to be Gary St. Amant. The man second in the point standings right now, missing the entire left front fender.
If it's cosmetic, Gary should be fine. Holzhausen, however, is a different story. We see Sean Dupuis, number 67 there. The Razor Performance Chevrolet. Here comes Holzhausen down pit lane. And
that one's torn up pretty good. St. Amant's staying out on the racetrack. There's a look at the damage. Remember, these are fiberglass bodies, so they do come apart pretty easily.
If you recall back in May, Gary St. Amant was involved in an incident with Robbie Pyle. He ended up landing on top of Pyle's car. He lost 3 laps. Consider those positions in the overall point chase. Jennerstown has taken a bite out of Gary St. Amant. They might have taken another bite here today.
St. Amant's in that 7 car in the middle.
All these lead lap guys that just pitted, and Billy Turner and Sean Dupuis got around here.
And there you see Gary going around, and Landis, Beebe, Holzhausen.
A lot of brake smoke and a lot of torn up race cars. Beebe really whacked the outside wall in that yellow 23. Holzhausen continues to stay on pit lane. Sean Dupuis, the 1996 regional and NASCAR, a national CAS car champion, making his first ever ASA start after 3 tries. Involved with Billy Turner. It may be cosmetic. He got turned in time around. Didn't look like he got any of the wheels got dinged.
Well, he has not come down pit road yet, so Gary banking on that. Well, they're going to have to do a little cleanup work. Well, we'll be back to Jennerstown after this. Clean up the racetrack. The bad news is that young kid right there is not holding that umbrella just for fun. It has started to drizzle again. Now this gym could get really interesting with 247 laps completed. We're back under yellow. There's Rick Beebe, who was involved in this last incident. Ted Smokestad leads it. He has never won an ASA race. Carlson runs in second. Hansen, who is third in the points, is now back to third on the race. Kevin Sawinski has worked his way back up to 4th. And I'm speculating here in case this thing ends up getting called. Joe Knott is 5th. Mike Eddy, who has led the majority of this race, is now back up to 6th after taking those pit stops once we got going again. Gary St. Amant, even after that last incident, is listed in 8th position. So you can take all of that and talk about the point standings. Junior Hanley, by the way, is 7th. Seneker is 9th, and Rick Beebe is listed in 10th.
Rick Beebe, you saw the damage on his car. Steve Holzhausen actually had the team pull the car behind the wall. So as those teams are trying to make their way back through, Holzhausen running top 10 all day long. Got involved with that accident. Again, 2 cars getting together in turn number 4, bringing out the event's 5th caution. You know Mike Eddy wants this to go green. Scott Hansen may have the car to beat, and we'll see if Mike Eddy, who's had the strongest car all day, has enough time to track him down.
Dave, any word on Gary St. Amant's car?
Well, we'll ask Mike Sinetko. He's been going out to the pit wall and looking every time Gary goes by. What can you see, Mike, and do you want to change anything, bring him in?
Best we can see right now is just the brake duct to cool the brakes is hanging down right now. Everything else looks like it'll stay on right now. We just hope it goes green the rest of the way. I mean, at this point in time, we don't want no rain. We want to make some laps.
Has Gary been able to work the car around it all and see if it's solid? Does it feel solid to him?
Feels real good to him.
Okay, so except for the percentage of body parts remaining on Gary's car, everything is about the same.
PBR is a term that gets used in the ASA racing, percentage of body remaining. And Gary right now about, what would you say, Jim, 80%?
80%, 80, I would say, because he's got a little bit of the front nose missing. Now, if just the fender was gone, that'd be about 85.
Well, that corner is dragging on the racetrack there. That is fiberglass body paneling, so that will wear down and wear off. And he lost the brake ducting, but with that being the corner that's missing, the cooling will come right back to it anyway, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Although you can flip a coin on pit lane, teams say there's a lot of brakes you need here, and a lot of teams float through the corners, don't need a lot of brakes.
Well, we'll take care of a little more business so we can show you some more green flag racing when we come back. There's Janet, Kevin Swinsky's biggest B fan. Stay with us. This is a good battle at the front of the pack, but it's not for position. Bobby Gill in the red, white, and blue, number 55, is actually 2 laps down. He's trying to get a lap back from Ted Smokestad, the race leader in car 32.
And behind them is Brad Loney, who's 3 laps down.
What's kind of interesting is the fact that of the first 200 laps here today, we've completed 257. Only 14 of them were yellow flag laps. However, the next 50 laps, 43 of those were run under yellow. And you can see the sprinkles showing up again on the lens of our camera on the roof. Mike Eddy making his way back to the front. Goodwin Service Plus Pontiac car number 88 is in 6th. Junior Hanley behind him. Joe Knott in front of him.
Joe Knott is in the 5th position. You see that Hansen now trying to work to the inside of Buddy Schrock. Schrock is 1 lap down in the Evolve Big A Auto Parts Chevrolet.
It's a new sponsor, Buddy Schrock.
Evolve was a brand new pill on the market, if nothing else could be said about it. It actually helps lower cholesterol, and as Buddy Schrock told me, helps clean your veins of any buildup. So it's a very revolutionary over-the-counter drug that they're introducing in the marketplace. Evolve, signing up with Buddy Schrock. Hopefully bigger and better things, as a number of the executives are here today from that company.
He needs it to clean up some traffic for him right now.
And to deal with
GNC. On the outside.
To deal with GNC, the General Nutrition Centers you might find in your local mall, and he's trying to get a better run here today. Just 1 lap down, I believe unofficially about 14th spot.
Hansen is listed in 3rd in car 52. The Tecumseh number 1 of Sawinski is 4th. And Joe Knott, under the guidance of crew chief for the day, Jim Daly, runs in 5th. Daly's done a nice job with this car.
Joe Knott and his crew chief, Chris Bradley, have separated after about, I think, the last 3 races. Joe Knott has gone without a crew chief.
Since
and
Minnesota.
Then Daly came on board for this race. He, of course, was the winning car owner and crew chief for Tony Raines back here on May 17th, the first visit to Jennerstown Speedway in 1997.
Rick Beebe's number 23 was involved in that big incident coming out of turn number 4. He is running in 10th right now, Dave.
Yeah, and Terry Garrison standing by. Terry, what was the main hurt on the car, and what were you able to fix?
Right lower A-arm got bent in quite a bit. Knocked the tread width and the wheelbase out real bad. We're just going to try to hang in there and see what the rain helps us out. Or
the way it looks, it's a handful right now for Rick, a real handful.
Couldn't hear you.
It's a real handful for Rick right now.
Oh, no doubt. He's just hanging in there, so.
And the guys say we're doing very well in the points, so you know what this means.
It means spray for Ray. Yeah. He's got a top 10 going right now, and he'd like to finish there.
He's in 10th, last car on lead lap. Got a win finally at Berlin Raceway. This car is one of his favorites. They ran 2 cars primarily most of the year. This is the car he nearly won with at La Crosse. He's had a 2nd place finish with it. For some reason, Connor Danny Hodges says Rick likes his car better for whatever reason, but they've had some great runs in no matter what equipment Terry Garrison prepares for this Hodges Motorsports team.
4th in the point standings, and he's about to go down a lap. And does. Ted Smokestad, our leader here today, the Build-A-Mold Trim Class number 32. Almost out of money, was out of money about halfway through the season. Alec Pinsino, one of the great gentlemen of the American Speed Association, said, you know what, Ted, I like you a lot. Here's some money. Go finish out the rest of the year. And that was money, Jim, he could have spent on his own racing program and didn't do that. Gave it to Ted. Ted is off racing and maybe in a position to win his first ever AC-Delco Challenge Series event. Joe Knott. He has got one of the greatest ever to climb behind an ASA car, chasing him down. Mike Eddy, looking for his first win of 97. First win in some 29 or 30 races.
It's been 29 races, and it would have been 68 races for Joe Knott. With that spectacular run, he went 68 ASA races before the race at Jennerstown. We all remember that spectacular finish. Across the start finish on with Bob Seneker going for the win. That was 68th career start for the 48 car of Joe Knott. Mike Eddy well over 300 starts in ASA. 54 career victories. This will be the 30th race without a victory for Mike Eddy. he does not find victory lane today. He's the strongest car, led 194 laps of the 271 runs so far.
He is running in 6th position right now behind Joe Knott, Kevin Sawinski. They're all getting bunched up again. Actually, 2nd through 6th, all running nose to tail right now. Brad Loney in the 33 car, not in that top group. He is 2 laps down.
Under the red flag conditions in ASA, as Dave Burns documented on pit lane, you can take your car behind pit wall, but you have to start at the back. Brad Loney did just that, made an adjustment. They lost a cylinder during the race, so we'll have to see what they
Junior Hanley with a cut down right front tire. He is back on pit road, and that's a shame, Jim. He was running really good earlier on today.
In the 7th position at the time he came down pit lane.
Oh boy, look at the back end of Carlson dancing around in the 87 car. These guys, Jim, boy, we said at the beginning of the show, there's been a lot of aggressive driving lately as everybody scrambles for points. These drivers that are running 2nd through 6th are all in the middle of the championship chase in the top 10 in points, all looking to make up some ground. Smokestad could be getting his first win. He's got a comfortable lead, but we know those drivers can see the raindrops on the windshield. The threat of this thing being stopped again is definitely something to think about. How hard do you push right now to pick up one more spot and maybe put yourself in a better position for the championship chase with 2 races to go after today?
And anytime we're past halfway, a race can be called. Smokestad leading for the first time all year. Could very easily pick up 13th place in the points. Tim Sauter came to the event 27 points ahead of Smokestad, so he's having a strong run today, and it looks like he might be heading up in the points.
Ted's dad watching anxiously, Dave. Are they getting nervous down there?
They sure are, and Doug and everybody else down here are hoping for rain. They're watching real carefully, and right now, we've got bigger drops coming down, and until right now, Carlson really has not been able to put got any closer to Smokestad, so not only are they watching the rain and telling Ted to be very careful out there, they're still outdistancing the field.
Ted, an old hockey player, pretty good skating around on slippery surfaces.
We'll see how good of a politician Doug Smokestad is. He's the crew chief for the leading car right now, so if he can get his way, he might have the ASA officials listening to him. If they say the drops come down too heavily, his driver might win the race if they call it.
A couple of the ASA teams have put their tarps out on the pit road area, so that's an indication things getting a little slippery down there, and he is slowed down too. Look at Brad Loney closing in, Carlson and Hansen and the rest all closing up. As far as that championship chase goes right now, Sawinski, he runs in 4th. St. Amant runs back in 7th, and Hansen runs in 3rd. Stay with us. This Pennsylvania 400 getting to be very interesting with 280 laps completed. Look at this. Brad Loney, who is laps down, just picked one back up as he passed to Smokestad on the outside. You know, Carlson and the rest have taken note of that. Look at Ted drift up in the middle of 3 and 4. He is praying for rain to get this thing stopped. Carlson comes up to challenge now on the outside, Hansen on the inside. And look at the racing behind them. Sawinski coming up. He's got all kinds of company behind him as well.
This is the battle for the lead. Smokestad, the red, white, blue 32, holding off the Cleanburn Pontiac of Carlson, but couldn't hold them off long enough. Looks like Carlson had the advantage there.
Smokestad fighting for his life as he looks for that first ever ASA win. You can see the raindrops on the lens. It is slippery out there, and these guys doing a great job of controlling these cars. Carlson takes the lead. Smokestad holds on to 2nd. Hansen comes up to 3rd. Jim, we've talked about what a charge and what a roll. Oh, Gary St. Amant backs it into the wall in turn 2. Oh, Gary St. Amant has seen his championship hopes go hard into the wall at turn 2 here today. That is really going to take a bite out of his chances, and Jim, this racetrack has done it to him twice in 97.
Gary, who finished 3 laps down here in May, finished 16th. If he would have had a top 10 run there, we'd be talking about a 2-car race for the championship. Would have been a lot tighter. Jennerstown Speedway has not been kind to Gary St. Amant.
Look at him fighting to get the wins number 7 down pit road to see if they can get it fixed, get him back out there.
There was a lot of impact. You see the left front wheel, it was fine after the altercation, but there's a lot of white marks, which means he caught the fence with the back and the front of the car.
Gary had fought his way all the way up to 6th and 7th position, was fighting with Mike Eddy for another position. There's his dad, Bud St. Amant, over there, taking a look at the back end of the car. Crew will go to work. If they can get him back out there, they will do so every lap. It's so important right now, every point they can get.
Mike Sinitko trying to call out signals to the crew, trying to get the bodywork cleared away. Gary's had 2 fourth-place finishes as his high mark here at Jennerstown Speedway, an 11th start. So, yeah, I wouldn't think he wouldn't mind if this track was on the schedule or not come 1998.
Dave, what's the story with Gary?
Well, I think you caught most of the picture there. The biggest problem is that the jack was extended as far as it would go, and they still didn't have enough room to get underneath there and change the tire. The damage is extensive to the left rear of the car where Gary backed it in. He won't need fuel anymore, it doesn't appear, and because the fuel line is pinched off, he should be okay for that. But they've got some real damage back there, guys.
And Jim, they've got some problems with the rain as well. If Gary could have just hung on a little bit longer, he might have been able to salvage that top 10. I'm not so sure
see the car
how long
dancing
that
down
car
pit
is going to be able to stay out there on the racetrack.
The car was dancing down pit lane, and the indicator of how bad the rear end is bent is look how far forward the left rear is.
When we come back, we'll take a look at the replays as Gary St. Amant watches his championship chances go hard into the wall. Again here at Jennerstown Speedway. So they have brought the machines to a halt here on the front straightaway. Steve Carlson out in front of Ted Smokestad, Scott Hansen, Kevin Sawinski, and Joe Knott, your top 5. Now, Gary St. Amant, this is good news for him, Jim, because they will allow them to work on that car during the red flag situation.
Right. Again, ASA rules, anytime there's a red flag situation, as long as you're behind the wall, you can do any changes you may need to do. You will have to start at the back of the field, but that's the least of his worries right now. We saw that car dog tracking or crabbing, whatever you want to call it. The rear end was not in alignment with the car. It was offset at least 4 or 5 inches, it looked like, on the racetrack.
Gary down there with Dave Burns. Let's take a look at the replay first before we talk to him so we can see what happened. He was on the outside of Joe Knott, battling for 5th.
Looks like it was a dry area where he went in, but it was already starting to go as soon as he entered turn 1. Blocked it down. Bam. And then the impact. And he also hit with the left front.
Hard impact for Gary St. Amant. Now take a listen to this. Now remember the last time we were here, that's Robbie Pyle sitting backwards and Gary up onto the hood.
That was early on in the race.
That was back here in May.
May 17th, and Gary St. Amant was stuck on top of Pyle for 3 laps. We saw his wheels actually spinning, trying to get off of Pyle's car. They ended up getting him off with the record, but he only finished 16th that day.
And today he ends up sitting like that. Dave Burns is with him.
Hey, Gary, we've had a good chance to look at it from our viewpoint now. What did it feel like for you? Was it getting wet out there?
It felt pretty ugly to me. You know, it was probably dry enough on the bottom to be running around there, but you know, everybody started kind of bottling up on the bottom, and you know, we saw the outside there, and I thought, whew, we're going to take this Win Chevy to the front, and we were rocking and rolling on the outside there in the rain, and it just kind of come around on me there going into 1.
I mean, was it starting to grease up at all, or did it just that really was a snap incident, and you really didn't have any idea the wet was out there on the outside?
Well, everybody was running around there following the leader, and right on the bottom of the racetrack, it was staying pretty dry on the bottom. You know, nobody wanted to try the outside, and it looked like, you know, I was the last car, so somebody had to go out there, and you know, we were going for it, and you know, maybe we shouldn't have.
You're okay?
Oh, yeah, we're okay. Hit awful hard. That wall is hard out there on the outside of Jennerstown Speedway, but we'll get him next week at Salem.
Gary finds out cement does not give.
Jim, we've talked about, as you take a look at the site of the impact there, how aggressive everybody has been. Gary saw an opening, knew that the rain was coming again. Thought, you know, if I could pick off 1 or 2 more, boy, that would be great.
And Joe Knott was in 5th position. Gary was in 6th, working the outside.
Can't blame him for trying.
No. And I thought perhaps it could have been something from the earlier incident which peeled the fender off, but that was simply cosmetic. And as Gary just confirmed, it was just wet conditions on the outside line.
Now, the best they can do with that car, I am sure, is just get him back into a position where he can safely complete the race and get as many laps in as he can and as many positions as he can. But a top 10, I got to believe at this point, is pretty much out of the question.
Mike Kofer is unofficially 8 laps down, but he's in 27th or so position. So if they go back green for an extended period of time, more than 8 laps, Gary may drop all the way back out of the top 25.
Well, and at this point, we don't know if we're going back to green.
That's right.
We're under another red flag situation. The second one of the day here at Jennerstown Speedway. Even the band is covering up. It has been a wet day here.
What's good for Gary St. Amant, though, is if they do call the race now, he won't lose those 8 laps. He'll have a lot better finish just by hitting the wall over there and bringing out the eventual red with the conditions. Think about the better finish he'll have if they do stop it.
Good point. Good point. Everybody trying to stay dry here and hoping to see if we can get this thing back underway. Dave, you got somebody else?
Yeah, if we go back to green, Ralph, Jimmy Johnson will not be going back. He is done for the day. Jimmy, what put you out?
We ended up breaking the rear end finally. It was kind of a bummer early on. We had a flat tire, went a couple laps down trying to get that right rear tire back on the car, and because it was under green race, and got back out there riding around trying to get some experience because I'm new to this series, and you know, we just ended up breaking the rear end. I feel bad for these guys and for Chevrolet. Everybody's been working really hard to put together a first-rate deal, and I'm glad to be a part of it, and we'll be in Kentley to go do it again and get some more experience.
Now, this was only your second pavement race, is that right? What did you learn today?
I learned a lot. In Cedar Rapids, I was a little timid, working my way around, and this time I a little more aggressive and passed a lot more cars this time. I learned how to pass finally, so that was a big help. And you know, like I said, it's just experience going through all the emotions and things that happen out on the track, in traffic, and out by yourself. So just accumulating seat time.
And he's got good equipment, guys. That's the Bud Gevin Chevrolet, the second car to the Bud Gevin team after Gary St. Amant. So Jimmy's learning in some good stuff.
Well, they have called this race. It is now officially over. Ted Smokestad came up 1 position and a couple of raindrops short of his first ever ASA win. So for the first time since 1992, an American Speed Association race has been called due to weather. The winner is Steve Carlson. And when we come back to the Jennerstown Speedway, we'll have an opportunity to talk to the winner of the most recent race on the AC-Delco Challenge Series season. There is your top 5 rundown. Stay with us, we're not done yet. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by your select GM Goodwrench Service Plus dealer. The plus means better. For the second time in 1997, Steve Carlson, under the guidance of Howie Leddow, has picked up a checkered flag. And he will be also closing in on maybe top 4 in the overall point standings this year. Rick Beebe just in front of him, but Steve's going to pick up a lot of points on him with this win.
Beebe had some problems. I don't think that 100-point difference between 4th and 5th will close greatly, but Carlson certainly has a shot at the top 4 in the points.
Let's meet him. He's with Dave Burns.
Well, Ralph and Carlson's here to prove the little seat time in a go-kart does pay off when you race. I got to ask you, though, with the rain starting to come down, how tough was it to go on the outside and pass Ted for the win?
It was tough. Ted ran me clean. I'll take any win that I can get. They're all hard to get, you know. I had a great car all day. Baker, the boys, they made that car work good, top or bottom. I had a kind of a poor start, you know, and we came through that pack pretty good. I thank Rob for the right stagger all day. I told him I'd say that. I thank Cleanburn, Trop Arctic, Pontiac, Goodyear. Got to get everybody here.
Steve's an excited guy. That's their second win of the season. I'm going to step over here real quick and talk to Ted Smokestad. Ted, so close, and you had a good car at that last restart. They weren't catching you, then the rain came.
Well, Dave, we had a really good car, and a lot of us were thinking that that red should have come a little earlier because I think it was raining harder than we had the first rain delay, but things didn't work out. I just want to say thanks to all the guys on my team. We've worked really hard, and last week we had a good run and didn't capitalize on it. And, you know, like to say thanks to Alec Pinsino and all the folks that build the mold, and like to say hi to Jeff and Nancy back home in Minneapolis. We brought that Aspen Electric Pontiac home up toward the front today. So hi, Butch, we miss you too. So we're excited. We're going to go to Salem and hopefully keep going.
Okay. Ralph?
Salem is next stop on the AC-Delco Challenge Series. You'll see that live on TNN next Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, our wins-winning move is going to go to Mike Eddy, driver of the Goodwrench Service Plus Pontiac, for coming home with a 6th-place finish. After leading the most laps today, he battled back to come home with a 6th-place finish. Nice job by Mike Eddy. That team due for a win. So Steve Carlson gets his second win of the year. Here's a look at the unofficial results. Two-way communications equipment for the AC-Delco Challenge Series is provided by Racing Electronics, official communications of the American Speed Association. ASA Racing is produced for television by Silver Fox Sports, Charlotte, North Carolina. 2 races to go with the American Speed Association. You'll see them both live right here on TNN. We really appreciate you sticking around with us through the rain delays. For Dave Burns, Jim Trado, I'm Ralph Shaheen. Great job by the entire television crew for sticking it out in all the rain. Way to go, guys. We'll see you next week from Salem.